What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Kind of Funny Xcast, your home for all things Xbox here at Kind of Funny. Of course, I'm one of your hosts, SnowBike Mike, and today, a little one-on-one show with a special treat as well that I'm going to tell you all about it. But first, Gary Whitta, what the heck is going on? It's nice to see you today.
It's nice to see you, even though we got to play some games together during the week. I feel like I've not been very present for the Kind of Funny content lately. I missed Xcast this past week. I missed Games Daily last week. I'm missing it again next week because of all these scheduling things. I'll be completely honest with you, Mike, in terms of missing last week, which I really wanted to be on, because you had Pete Hines and Aaron Greenberg, and it was cool to have those guys on. I wanted to join you for that. But because Pete's on the East Coast, remember he asked for the time to be brought forward a little bit to 12 p.m. That did unfortunately coincide with England versus Scotland in the European Championships. You got to get your priorities right, Mike. I had to make the right call, so I watched the game instead. Wasn't really rewarded for my loyalty, to be honest. The game was very poor, but once every couple of years, I gotta follow my beloved England once more into the breach. So I'm sorry I missed last week's show, but we'll make up for it this week because it's just me and thee. Let's get into it.
Let's get into it, Gary. What you missed out on some fun with those two, and they were really great. And guess what? For all the listeners and viewers out there, we're not done. We have a really special one here at the back half of the episode. I'm going to sit down with our guy, Mr. Greg Miller, and we're going to talk all things Sea of Thieves. We actually invited on two of the Sea of Thieves team members, Joe Neat, executive producer, and Mike Chapman, creative director, to talk all things A Pirate's Life, the brand new update coming to Sea of Thieves this week. Hopefully you've been playing it, and if you haven't played it, take this as your little push to say, hey, go check it out, because I'm going to tell you all about that during what games we've been playing and during this fun interview segment at the back half of the show. But before all that, it's just me and Gary, so we got to catch up. We got to talk some video games. So let's get through housekeeping and let's get this show on the road. Of course, this is the Kind of Funny Xcast. We post each and every Saturday at 6 a.m. West Coast, Best Coast time on youtube.com/kindoffunnygames, roosterteeth.com, and on podcast services around the globe. If you haven't already, do me a favor. Go on over to youtube.com/kindoffunnyplays. Yeah, that's right. I'm throwing a different URL at you. That is where we put all of our VOD live streams each and every week. Of course, I host all of our daily gaming sessions in the afternoon after Kind of Funny Games Daily. If you miss out on any of the fun that we have on stream with myself and the Kind of Funny crew, we post all of those streams directly to that YouTube channel, youtube.com/kindoffunnyplays. Go check out all the fun. We'd like to take a moment and thank our Patreon producers for the month: Donovan Harkness, Omega 3, Tyler Ross, Delaney Twinning, Julian the Gluten-Free Gamer, James Hastings, Casey Andrew, and Elliot. Of course, this week, the Kind of Funny Xcast is sponsored by ExpressVPN and HVMN, but I'll tell you all about that a little bit later. Okay, well, let's jump into it, and I want to kick it off because I haven't seen you in over a week. I want to know what you've been playing, because you and I, we teamed up on a stream. We played a game together, so why don't we start with that, and then I want to see what you've been playing on your off time. But we played Dungeons & Dragons Dark Alliance, a new game coming together on Game Pass. What are some of your initial thoughts?
Well, Mike, that actually originally just came from me wanting to kind of just play a game with you. I just wanted to do some gaming with my buddy Mike, and it didn't even really matter like what game it was. It could have been Fall Guys or whatever. I just kind of missed like playing games with friends on stream, and Dark Alliance dropped, and I don't know, it just kind of looked like it might be my kind of thing, for someone who goes all the way back to Gauntlet, the original classic kind of, RPG action 4-player, beat 'em up, hack and slash, whatever you want to call it. I like that kind of stuff. And on paper, it looked pretty good. The trailers looked pretty good. D&D had a good pedigree. I don't know. I thought I'd give it a try. Co-op, that was the key. And on Game Pass, that's the other key, right? How many times have we talked about it on this show? Game Pass is a great discovery engine. Dark Alliance is $40 at retail. As much as I was curious about it, I was not going to drop $40 to see if it was my cup of tea. But again, the great thing about Game Pass is once you've already paid for that subscription, everything is kind of basically feels free to try, right? At least to try. And so I said, "Do you want to give it?" I didn't want to play it on my own. I'd already read some very mixed reviews that said, "Don't even bother playing it on your own. If there's any fun to be had with this game, it's playing co-op." I think you and I both know even a mediocre game can be fun in the right company when you're playing with friends. And that's kind of the experience that we had, I think, right? You and I remember saying to you, like at the end, someone in my chat, because we were streaming it together, said, "Is this game any good?" I was like, I don't know. Is it, Mike? And you were like, no. Like we weren't really feeling it. It was frustrating. Mike, you tell me what your thoughts were, but like I feel like all the ingredients were there for it to be a really fun game, but due to like a bunch of different issues that we all kind of highlighted as we were experiencing them on the stream, it just didn't quite come together into a really fun experience.
Yeah, you're so right, Gary. It just was not a good time. And it was unfortunate because you brought up Gauntlet, right? I grew up with Gauntlet Legends. We talk about Diablo 2 and how near and dear that is to my heart. And we look at these fun, like 4-player hack and slash medieval setting video games. And I really thought that this was going to click for me and you and have some fun. And I think it came down to gameplay. Gary, you and I kind of talked about it while we were playing it. It's like the game does look good. And the game trailers are really impressive in CGI, and the story seems to be
Cinematics were
fun
great.
and building up. But when it comes down to the gameplay, there was just something missing there, Gary. The essence of that hack and slash beat 'em up brawler just wasn't there. The characters felt a little slow on the movement side. The enemies were just really, really poorly put together. You would be fighting one, and 7 other enemies in the background would just stare at you and cheer on in the background while you fought this enemy one on one. And it was like, man, what is happening here? Why am I not getting mobbed by people? The cohesion between me and Gary is totally unneeded. He can go one way, I can go the other way.
Yeah.
And it just felt like it was just missing that kind of essence of what makes those games fun. And that's like the high octane action. That's those enemies that just come at you wave after wave instead of just staring at you mindlessly. And it really put a damper on our whole situation, you and I. And there's some good things that I took away from that as well that, I want to highlight. Like, when we did the levels, right, I felt like the level design was pretty cool. There was branching paths that we could go on. There was places to go explore and get lost with cool collectibles. But when it comes back to the enemies, these maps were pretty big. It took 15 to 20 minutes to complete a level, but there was only 40, 30 enemies on each map. And it felt like, man, this is a lot of wasted space, a lot of empty moments. And when we did have those fights, they just stood in a circle around us and didn't do anything. And it was like, man, this is unimpressive. This isn't fun. And that was a big one for me, was the gameplay, Gary.
Yeah, I just remember I was complaining about one thing. I was constantly like, look at this. Why, it's just like a litany of kind of laundry list of complaints, like live as we were experiencing them in the game. And these are the kind of games that are frustrating, because I don't think it's a terrible game. I just think it's kind of a missed opportunity. And those are the ones that really bug me the most. And like when a game's just bad, like you just dismiss it and move on as quickly as possible and forget about it. But when a game, when you can kind of see the potential of a game to be good, like the pieces are there, but it doesn't quite come together, that's more frustrating, right? Because like, oh man, this game could have been so close to being good. But for me, it came down to a handful of things. Like you said, the game looked great. Like in screenshots, it looks great. The aesthetic, the visual design, the production design, the graphics of it all, really cool looking environments. The characters look good. But the biggest issue I had, Mike, and you heard me complain about it time and time again on the stream, it was really framey. It was slow. It felt like your characters kind of felt like they were wading through molasses. Like if someone starts attacking me from behind, to turn around, it kind of feels like this really slow, sludgy kind of process. And it wasn't smooth. There's no way that game was hitting more than like 30 frames a second. And maybe I was a little bit spoiled because I just got done playing Ratchet and Clank on PlayStation 5 in 60 frames per second ray tracing mode, which just absolutely runs like butter. No reason the Series X can't do that as well. We've seen a million times that the two systems mainly, largely similar in terms of graphical performance, but that's the difference between a AAA, one of the best developers in the world like Insomniac, and a team, the team that did Dark Alliance, where you can just tell it wasn't optimized. It didn't feel like a next gen game. I felt like I could have been playing an Xbox One game in terms of the performance, and we've come to expect better at this point, right? There's enough 60 frames per second, 4K games out there on Series X and on PlayStation 5 now. We're in the next generation now. We know it. And so we feel like games that feel like they're still kind of running to catch up, or might feel like a holdover from the previous generation in terms of performance, just not good enough anymore. So there was that. And then we got disconnected after every single scrim of this. Every single round we got disconnected. What's that about? Like, we're supposed to be past all this kind of like basic netcode kind of stuff. And you touched on it as well, some like real issues with AI programming. Like I'm wailing on this orc over here, and his buddy is standing 3 feet away, like minding his own business. Like, why haven't I pulled this guy? Like, where's the AI? So there was a big long laundry list of complaints with it. And I really don't like kind of being too negative for too long. Like, I'd rather talk about things that I like, but we did happen to play this. It's a game that's been in the news the past couple of weeks because it's got the D&D license. There was some expectation behind it, but from looking at the reviews, it sounds like it landed with a thud. I saw the bad reviews. I don't care. Me and Mike are going to get some fun out of this anyway, and we did. Right? Again, you and I could be playing the most boring game, but we'd still find a way to have fun doing it. But that was the frustrating thing. Is like the game was close to being like a real banger in terms of that wading through enemies, almost kind of like a Dynasty, wars kind of feel, just like flailing through the bad guys, hacking and slashing, picking. It's such a simple formula. Pick up the loot. Get the loot, armor yourself up, go back in, kill some more bad guys. Like we love that kind of loot grind. When it's done well, that could be really fun. And this game came close to getting it, but a handful of technical and weird, other issues with it. Like it was just an exercise in frustration. I uninstalled it right after we were done. And again, no harm done, right? I wasted a couple of hours because it wasn't as fun as I wanted it to be. But at least, again, this is the magic of a Game Pass. Even when it's a bad game, you're not ruining the $40 that you spent or wondering if you can take it back to the store or get a refund on your digital purchase because, again, no harm, no foul in terms of the money that you spend on it. But, this is one of the things about Game Pass. It's nice to have all these games. Not everyone's going to be a banger. And so when you discover something that you might not have tried, that you might not have thought to try and it was great, that's great as well. But Game Pass is also kind of a nice safety net for the bad games that show up on there because at least you didn't waste the money if the game doesn't work out for you.
Totally true, Gary. And I want to circle back to something you just said after this, but like it had the makings of something that was going to be fun, Gary, is right. You touched on it a couple of times there. It was just kind of missing that piece, right? It has 4 kind of unique character classes there. Each one was going to have, a skill tree. It was going to have attributes. It was going to have its own loot. And it all seemed like it was going to click for us on this kind of loot grind and playing through this campaign. And I was really excited for that. And I clicked on the Ranger, the Archer, on the first go ahead, and I looked at you halfway through the level and I said, this doesn't feel good at all, Gary. The shooting,
you changed your character right away, right?
Yeah, it just totally felt off. And it's one of those, like I really usually gravitate to those archers and ranger classes. And I started shooting that bow and it just felt off from the moment. And I was like, you know what? I have to shift gears. I have to change out. And that next level, I had to turn that off, which was really too bad. And I think the gameplay elevated when I did pick that dual wielding sword rogue,
the rogue character,
but it still didn't feel good connecting with the AI, battling through that. It's funny, you uninstalled. I actually went back the next morning and I played one whole campaign by myself, which is essentially 3 missions. Took me about an hour, and it was just one of those where it's like maybe I can just turn my mind off and hack and slash away. And it was one of those games where I could do that, but it didn't feel rewarding. It didn't feel fun, right? I was running through these levels and there was just nothing around me. It was empty for 30 seconds, a minute, and certain times where I'm like, man, this would be fun if I was attacking things or if it had better combat. And it really stunk even by myself. And it's just one of
I
those
remember when we would get stuck in the levels, Mike. Like we weren't sure what there was, like multiple waypoint things telling us where to go off in different directions, and we kept backtracking. It's like, where the hell are we supposed to be going? Like basic stuff like that. That just kind of felt like it wasn't from both a design and a technical standpoint. It's just not at a high enough level compared to other stuff that's out there. And again, it's a shame because D&D, there's a lot of people out there that want to dive into the D&D universe. Dark Alliance is a thing all of its own. And so again, the ingredients were there, right? But you still got to know how to cook them. You can put gourmet ingredients in front of me, but if I'm not a gourmet chef, I'm probably not going to make a gourmet meal. And I kind of feel like they had all the right pieces. We know from, like, the funny thing is we spent most of the time talking about how much we're looking forward to playing Diablo 2 Resurrected, because like maybe because that game's more likely to deliver the feel that we want, right? Multiple players running around a dungeon, carving up enemies, like that kind of stuff is really, really fun. And it seems like it's not that difficult to get it right, but apparently it is, because we do see examples of failures in this genre. Dark Alliance, I think, being the most recent one. It's there on Game Pass. If you're really, really hardcore into D&D, maybe you'll find something to amuse you. But I will echo what a lot of the reviews said, which is don't even bother just playing it by yourself. If there's any fun to be had with it, it's the fun of experiencing and complaining about all the weird things that the game does
Yes.
with other friends. But yeah, it wasn't something that I felt like I wanted to go. Maybe with 4 players, with 4 of you playing, there might be something to it. But just again, like there wasn't a single time where we didn't get disconnected after a round. And that kind of stuff gets old really quickly. Back in the old days of like 360, when we were still trying to figure out, how to do matchmaking and netcode and stuff like that, I expected it back then because, the ecosystem wasn't that, mature. But now, basic stuff like just keeping me connected from one round to another, so you don't have to keep like re-inviting me back into your game. We're past that. And it's I imagine there'll be some patches that will figure this out. This is why I often say don't play games right when they come out. Wait for a couple of patches to stabilize it, because so many games ship these days not quite ready. They take these things out of the oven not when they're fully cooked, but when they have to be ready on time. And sometimes these things only get addressed in a few patches after the fact. Maybe a few patches will fix it, but our initial kind of day one experience with it was not great.
No, that's a skippable game on Game Pass. So, I don't want to get down, like you said, Gary. So let's turn it all around and let's get up. So why don't you tell me something else you've been playing? Because I have one more in the chamber that I'm excited to talk about.
So we went back to the well a little bit. My kid, who's home from school right now over the summer, is always looking for things to play with her mom and dad. Anything 3-player is a hit in our house. We went back to the well again. I don't know how many times I've mentioned it on this podcast. We went back to Tetris Effect Connected. We've been playing some Tetris. There is a great mode on there where 3 of you get to play collaboratively against increasingly more difficult AI opponents. And it's a single AI, but they're playing against you, the 3 of you working together as a team. And I always have a lot of fun doing that. So we played some Connected. I just got the platinum on Ratchet and Clank on PS5, finished that. We've since moved on to, my wife's working her way through Miles Morales right now. Watching those 2 games back to back once again cements my increasingly firm opinion that Insomniac Games is the best developer of video games in the Western world. I think that's I show me a better one. They're so good at what they do. Every single game they do is like a masterclass. And then trying to think what else. A couple of other things. Unpacking, which is a game that's coming out on PC and I believe Nintendo Switch later this year. Just a very, very cute little puzzle game that really is as mundane as take objects out of cardboard boxes. You've moved into a new home or a new dorm room at college or whatever, and you just have to unpack everything and put everything where it belongs. If you've got that little OCD itch, if you're the kind of person that likes to kind of line up your books on the bookcase so they're all nice and neat and everything's squared away and in its place, so that's very much me. I don't like clutter. I like things to be nice and neat and tidy and orderly. This game's going to scratch that itch for you. Very much looking forward to the full release. My kid was playing it. She played the 3 levels and it said, "Thanks for playing the demo. Come back later this year." And my kid got really angry at me. She's like, "Why didn't you tell me this was only a demo?" Because she really, really liked it and wanted to play more. And then just today, finally got started in Mario Golf. Of course, the big story in video games today, Greg Miller getting his ass handed to him by the Nitro rival Andy Cortez. Mike, you were there, right? What was that like being there for the downfall of Greg Miller? Because he talked a big game coming into that match, right?
In the front 9, he stayed close. He was down by 2 strokes heading into the back 9. And you could tell as we hit the halfway point that something wasn't right with Greg. He just wasn't in it. And as we started to hit hole 15 and 16, that lead grew to about 4+ strokes, and it was just over for him. And he did a good job at not chirping it all until the very end. But man, he shut Big Mouth Greg Miller up, and it was very awesome to watch.
I love Greg, and he likes to talk a big game because he loves these kind of games, right? Everybody's golf. He's on Hot Shots Golf and the ones that are on the PlayStation, very, very popular. I know he's enjoyed Mario Golf over the years as well. But like just watching him on social media and on Kind of Funny after the last week or two, he really did like put a bit of a noose around his neck in terms of like he was just running his mouth constantly about how he was going to wipe the floor with everyone. And this is where it gets you. I just saw him on the stream right before the podcast. He doesn't look happy. He looks like a beaten man, frankly, Mike. He looks like a picture of defeat.
He is the picture of defeat, and we'll see what happens to him as we return to Mario Golf, I'm sure, because there will definitely be a rematch in the near couple of days, I'm sure.
So speaking of, I need to get you hooked. Like, you and I need to get hooked up. Let's get a foursome in Mario Golf going. And then the other thing we've neglected to mention, and I know this is something we're talking about on the show this week. After we got bored of Dark Alliance, we decided to move on to Sea of Thieves. We got Greg Miller into the mix. I wasn't able to. I've said, how many times have I said on the podcast? I really want to get to it. I do want to play it. I know a lot of people are talking about it. I finally bit the bullet, got it installed, and then had a weird technical issue with my capture card, which I've since resolved, but I wasn't able to join you for that initial foray into all the new Jack Sparrow content. But we'll get it going. I know you, me, Paris, and Greg are talking about putting a four-player crew together. But I was really bummed out because I was really excited to finally kind of get my teeth into Sea of Thieves and just had a couple of technical issues. But, I mean, it does look like a lot of fun.
Well, I really appreciate you segueing us into Sea of Thieves because that is the game I want to talk about and really spread the good word about. This game really is something special. And with this latest content update, the big one that dropped on June 22nd, A Pirate's Life, the crossover with Pirates of the Caribbean, Gary, this has been an absolute blast to return to this game. And I'm one of those guys who was there day one, got burnt out on what the content was, some of the downtime that was spent in between going to different islands, collecting the chests and the treasures and bringing them back. And I've gone back ever so rarely when they announced arenas, when they brought back pets, and now to this week where I've come back in full force and I played through all 5 Tall Tales, which is essentially the original story that they told with this crossover event of Pirates of the Caribbean, Jack Sparrow and Davy Jones joining the Sea of Thieves world. And I'm wowed by it, Gary. I'm in awe, and I had so much fun enjoying this incredible tale, this story that they created, and what they added to the world. There's just so much there, and it's wild to think about. You'll hear in this interview on the second half of this podcast of what this team created during COVID, right? They started full development in March last year, so they created this over that 15-month period, all kind of working from home, and they created something really, really special here that made it really fun to play. It's a totally free update. There's no charge up front whatsoever, and you can jump in and experience these 5 handcrafted tales that take anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half. These are meaty experiences, Gary, that have the whimsical feel of being on the Sea of Thieves or Pirates of the Caribbean ride or watching the movies. And it's like this really cool mix of Sea of Thieves, Pirates of the Caribbean gameplay, but also feeling like you're at some sort of crazy dinner show. I'm from Colorado, so it feels like Casa Bonita and that dinner show. And it was like one of those where you're looking to the left, you're looking to the right, you're trying to find Jack Sparrow and all the action, and you're just kind of lost in the whimsical nature. And it is a ton of fun. You can do it solo or you can do it with friends. I think that was the biggest one for me with Sea of Thieves as well, was getting together with Greg, who had never played Sea of Thieves, was kind of on the fence after hearing all of that talk over the past 3 years, playing it with him, who's a newcomer, me being in the middle of the road. And then last night, finishing out the 4th and 5th Tall Tale with my good friend Miles from Windows Central, who was a diehard Sea of Thieves player. He knows the game in and out and is just so impressed by what they created. And it was so much fun, the breadth of what they put into this. Of there's the solo instances where you're not in that shared world. There's missions where you're in that shared world and you can see the entire world and all the people coming together in different areas of the map and trying to do these missions. And it was really, really good, Gary. I'm so impressed. I want to encourage everybody over this weekend and next week, go check it out. Give it a try, whether you be solo or with friends. This is well worth your time. The team over at Rare, they created something really special, and it is a total blast. And I will say this, Tall Tale number 2 is definitely bugged up. It took me 4.5 hours, Gary, 4 different tries to complete this mission because it's in the shared world. So if you show up and people are already there, they might have bugged out the situation that you need to do during that puzzle. And so it took me a long time. It took my friend Miles about 5 hours to complete that mission as well. And I did talk with the team after our interview. They said a hot fix is coming through right away. They're working hard to fix that. But if you can wait till that update and you can go out there and sail the 7 seas with your friends, you're going to absolutely love A Pirate's Life because they did a phenomenal job of what they added.
That, by the way, is my least favorite kind of bug in a game, and I see it all the time. I saw it with Borderlands 3. I think Cyberpunk was plagued by this kind of bug. Sounds like a similar thing here, where you complete a mission, but the game won't register it. It's like you've done everything you need to do, but like it just won't click. When the game won't like flip the switch that acknowledges you've done it and let you move to the next thing or whatever, or give you the reward, or the trophy won't pop or whatever it might be. The achievement, you don't get it. It's really, really. It sounds like they've still got a few things to patch. I wanted to ask you though, because I'm on a similar trajectory as Greg. Like we were both newbies. Because I had to bail because I couldn't get the game working. But when you played with Greg the other night, was he able to pick it up and get into it pretty quickly?
Yeah, it was really impressive to see Greg gravitate and learn the mechanics so fast. They actually have a really cool tutorial, Gary, that they've now put into the game for
I got to
new
do
players.
that.
That takes about 10 to 20 minutes. It's not long at all. But Greg actually came out of that along with my friend Washburn, and they both looked at me and they said, wow, I really finally understand what this game's mechanics are and what it wants me to do. I felt the first time I jumped in here, I was just kind of thrown to the wind. I had no idea. They played the tutorial and they felt like they knew what they were supposed to do. They knew the guiding lights and all the principles of this sandbox. And so that's really big positive. I would encourage you to check out the tutorial and go play that. It only takes 10 to 20 minutes. And then
Yeah, so that's what I'm going to do, because
ready.
next time we play, I don't want to hold you guys up while I'm like doing the basic stuff. I'm going to go play. I'll do the tutorial like solo offline just so I know. And then maybe we can play again soon, because I literally got breaking news for you on the podcast as we speak. I just got a text from Greg Miller, who apparently has emerged from his pit of self-pity and despair that he's been in since Andy put him there earlier today on the 18th hole. Says he's very keen to get out on the high seas with us this weekend. So maybe we'll get that going.
I would love that. I would definitely want to do it again. And I think some of these set pieces that you're going to see, Gary, are really going to wow you, right? I know you're kind of a new player coming in, but for veteran players, right, you're going to see things you've never seen before. You're going to go to the deepest depths of this ocean that you've never been to, and you're going to see these cool set pieces, these worlds that they've created, and you're going to be in awe. I mean, goosebumps type situations when you swim down to the deepest depths and see this new area. You see the reveal of the Black Pearl. You get to hang around with Jack Sparrow throughout the Tall Tales. It's a ton of fun, and definitely want to make sure we send a whole lot of love, a lot of energy towards that team over at Rare for what they created, because this update is really, really cool, and it's well worth your time. So when we talked about what we've been playing, I wanted to make sure we touch on that. But there'll be plenty more Sea of Thieves talk at the back half of the episode. Myself and Greg Miller sit down with Joe and Mike from the Sea of Thieves team to talk about the release, everything that went into it, all the behind the scenes stuff that you want to know about, because it's a ton of fun. But with that, Gary, let's jump into the latest Xbox news of the week. So we're going to play a fun one. Me and Pears played one last week, hit the brakes or keep it moving. I'm going to actually let you choose the first story that we talk about. So I'll give you three, and you tell me
I like
what
it. All
interests
right.
you the most. So up first, new designed for Xbox monitors. Number two will be Phil Spencer on a possible return of an Xbox fan favorite, Killer Instinct. Or number three, Phil Spencer once again sheds some light on the Halo Infinite release window.
Let's go with the monitors, because that's interesting. I've been in the monitor market recently. That could be of interest to me. Let's go there first.
Let's talk about it, Gary. So right now, over on the Xbox Wire, you can check out the full briefing on that blog post. But Xbox has announced the Designed for Xbox product line is adding 3 monitors designed to elevate your gaming experience in the Xbox ecosystem. This coming directly from the Xbox Wire. Few devices in gaming are as important as your display, and we know with a new console generation comes unparalleled fidelity in your gaming experiences. With the amazing visual capabilities of the Xbox Series X and S and new display features to consider like HDR, 4K at 120 Hz, and variable refresh rate VRR, we want to help Xbox fans find the ideal monitor for your preferred gaming experience. Today, for the first time, we're announcing gaming monitors from our licensed partners will join the Design for Xbox program. We worked closely with leading display manufacturers, Philips, Asus, and Acer over the last 2 years to prepare these products to take full advantage of the Xbox Series consoles and HDMI 2.1. So Gary, let me give you the rundown. Number one, you have the Philips Momentum Display. For console gaming enthusiasts, the new Designed for Xbox Philips Momentum Display is what players expect from a high-fidelity monitors in the new era of gaming. At 55 inches, this monitor is a display and soundbar in one. The Philips Momentum supports 4K resolution at 120 Hz, powered by AMD FreeSync Premium Pro technology to reduce screen tearing. Number 2, our friends at the Republic of Gamers have been hard at work on a new monitor for Xbox fans. The Asus ROG Strix Xbox Edition comes in a 43 inches, delivering 4K UHD visuals and 1 millisecond of moving picture response time, MPRT, for super fast gaming on a big screen. And number 3, the 28-inch Acer Xbox Edition gaming monitor supports 4K at 120 and HDMI 2.1, pushing the next generation gameplay to its limits on the Xbox Series consoles. It has a low 1 millisecond response time and ensures high color accuracy with VISA Display HDR 400, providing great contrast between dark and light shades. So, Gary, 3 monitors coming into this product line. You're in the market for a new gaming monitor. What do you think about Xbox, kind of helping out the Xbox fans and making it maybe an easier decision than being overwhelmed by the choice that we have in the gaming world?
I think what's been interesting with this new generation of console hardware in general, this is true on the PlayStation side as well, but let's just stick with Xbox for right now. Series X, right there on the box, and they made a lot of noises about this. 4K, 120 frames per second, 120 hertz, HDR, Dolby Vision, all this amazing stuff. The reality is that's actually on a cutting edge beyond even where the majority of the television market is right now, right? It's nice to have the hardware that can output it, but unless you've got a display that can also render and show it at that highest level, you're not going to get a lot of the best of it. A lot of people that I would imagine the vast majority of people who have a Series X at home right now are not getting the best possible performance that it can deliver because it's being bottlenecked by the display that they have. HDMI 2.1, the ability for a 4K TV to also render at 120 hertz. Very, very few TVs right now can do that. Those are the TVs at the very kind of top end, kind of like your basic kind of Vizio TV or whatever is probably not going to do it. You need like a really kind of high end LG or Samsung or one of these TVs, and you got to make sure you have the right cables and everything's going to be set up just the right way. And then there's the monitor market, which is a whole different thing. A lot of people play their Xbox games. I would say most people play their Xbox games on their, HD TV or their 4K TV in their living room or wherever it might be. But a lot of people, like us, especially people that are in the streaming game, are playing it on a monitor. And actually, one of the things I learned from Sea of Thieves is that it's often difficult to get a game running from an Xbox onto your PC monitor in a way that, again, fully does justice to what the Xbox, is capable of outputting. A lot of gaming monitors, for example, don't do HDR or don't do Dolby Vision, or they're not 4K. This isn't a 4K monitor. This is a 2K monitor. 4K monitors are, again, at the very, very high end of the market. So, the people that are actually that have a Series X and are really getting the best out of it in terms of what their eyeballs are actually looking at coming out of their display, I think that's a very, very slim percentage of gamers overall, because you've got to have the cutting edge display to match with the cutting edge hardware. That's obviously going to change, over the years ahead as more people upgrade their TVs and, the 4K, Dolby Vision, HDR, 120 hertz, HDMI 2.1, all that stuff becomes more mainstream. Right now, it's still at the top end of the market, but it's really, really interesting for people like us, or for anyone who just happens to have their Xbox set up to play on their computer monitor. Like I said, most monitors don't do 4K or HDR or the things that Xbox can output. So to have Xbox now working with the likes of Asus and Acer, and I've got literally the 2 monitors I've got on my setup right here. This is an Asus and this is an Acer, and neither of them do 4K, neither of them do HDR. They're both very good monitors, but I'm fully aware that when I play an Xbox game on this screen, oftentimes when I have to think about, do I want to stream an Xbox game, sometimes what goes into my calculus is it'll be fun to play it with an audience, but I don't want to play it on this monitor because I've got a way better TV upstairs that will do 4K, that will do 120 hertz, that will do Dolby Vision. I want to get the best experience on my TV. So I think if what we're seeing here is the beginning of a move towards dedicated, computer monitors, gaming monitors, catching up to what the top end TVs can do in terms of really doing justice to what the Series X is outputting, all of those frame rates, all of those hertz, all of that resolution, then that's a great thing, and I welcome it. And I'm definitely in the market for something like that, because I think it would probably encourage me and other streamers to stream more games on their Xbox, because they wouldn't feel like they're giving up anything in return for playing it on a computer monitor as opposed to kind of big screen TV. The sizes are really interesting as well. 28 inches. This one here on my desk is 27, so 28 is kind of right in that sweet spot. 43 inches really caught my eye, because that's kind of an interesting, like for a TV, that would be considered kind of small, right? On your wall. You usually think like 55 or bigger if you really want to kind of like have a blowout experience. But on a desktop as a computer monitor, 43 inches would be, because you're only sitting this far away from it. That would be massive. So, I mean, I can imagine actually like that 43-inch monitor you're talking about, with the 4K, with the 120 hertz, with the HDR, and it's on your desk and you're like, 2 feet away from it. That could look fantastic. So I'm actually really interested in that.
Yeah, Gary, I'm actually, this story is so crazy because it's so near and dear to my heart. It's funny. Every single night I have the same conversations with my friends in the Discord of, hey guys, I have this awesome 4K TV, but it only does 60 frames. And we've been playing a lot of Warzone, a lot of first person shooters. I have the Xbox, I have the big boy PC, and I want to get that 120. I want to see that. I want to feel that, right? And every single time we loop back to the same conversation. Well, Mike, we're like just at the point where, these monitors and TVs are finally hitting 4K 120, and they're very expensive, right, Mike? Maybe you need to look at the 1440p 120 or above. That's more your price range. That's more where you should be. And every single night I fight back of like, well, this is what the next generation is going to be. This is the future is going to be. Why would I buy this when I can future proof myself and be prepared? And it's funny. I am the least tech person out of my family and out of my friend group, that I'm always overwhelmed by the choice and by all of the numbers and the stats and everything you see on the different websites. And I actually really love that Xbox is saying, hey, we'll lend a hand. We'll help you out here. We'll put the sticker on the box and we'll say, these are designed for this. We've worked with these different manufacturers to make it easy for you, the consumer, who might not be really big into tech, but you want the best out of this. We'll help you and we'll point you in the right direction. And that's what I think I need as a gamer, right? I'm one of those guys who would love a little point in the right direction. This is what you should be looking at. Even if I don't make that choice, at least I looked at them and I knew what those kind of options were before I get lost in the Best Buys and the Newegg's and everything in between on those different websites, where I just feel overwhelmed, Gary. And it's really fun that Xbox put this blog post out, because I've been dealing with this for the past like 6 months, me and my friends talking about it.
It's really, really confusing. And I think that for many people who, I think 90% of gamers, and by gamer I mean anyone who's got a PlayStation or an Xbox or a Switch or whatever PC in their house, don't really know or care about these kind of high-end distinctions. I remember when my brother-in-law first got an Xbox 360, he was happy with it like for ages. And when I finally went over to his house, I think like we visited for the holidays, he didn't even realize that he wasn't even playing at 720p. He'd been playing at 480p all this time. I flipped one switch on the back of the Xbox. He was like, "Oh wow, what did you do?" I was like, I flipped a switch, but like, he didn't even realize that he wasn't getting the best out of the console. And I think most people don't know the difference. The problem is for people like you and me, who really do want to have that best possible experience, who you end up reading all these articles about, well, does my TV do HDMI 2.1 and does it do the 120 frames, and some do, and oftentimes there's no simple answer. And there's so much information out there on the tech blogs and the forums and on websites kind of telling you like what's the best TV for gaming, but you got to know there's this caveat and that caveat, and you got to make sure you have this kind of cable, and your TV's got to be calibrated a certain way. And like, if you really want to have that cutting edge experience where you're getting 4K 120 hertz and the whole thing, you really do have to do a lot of research and jump through a lot of rabbit holes. I'm still figuring it out, and this is like a real a lifelong hobby for me. So anything they can do to kind of make that easier, I think will help. Again, it's really, really nice that some of the things that we typically associate, even like I said, HDR at this point is pretty basic on a lot of TVs, right? Even like a cheap TV you would get from Walmart or whatever will probably do some form of HDR. This monitor doesn't, and HDR has been slow to kind of reach the monitor market. Some of the newer ones will do it, but again, these monitors are a few years old, so I'm fully aware. Like, for example, when I play an Xbox game on this monitor, it just looks a little bit washed out compared to when I play on the TV upstairs, where the colors are much more vibrant, and that's just the way that the display is rendering the color space and throttling it a little bit. And so I think if we can get gaming monitors to the point where they're matching, the high end, gaming TVs for delivering these kind of graphics on console, all the better. The other thing to remember, of course, is this promise of 4K 120 hertz. It's not like every game is going to look that much better once you've got all the right cables plugged in. They still have to deliver that performance in the game. And the list of games that are actually running at 4K and 120 frames per second on either Xbox or PlayStation, I think you can still count on the fingers of one hand. Again, even like a real technological showcase like Ratchet and Clank on PlayStation 5 is still making you choose between 4K fidelity and 60. You can't have 4K. You don't even have 4K 60 on Ratchet and Clank. You can have 4K 30 plus or whatever, or you can have 2K 60, and it's constantly kind of modulating the resolution and the frame rate to kind of give you a stable experience. But that idea that and they make it such a big deal on both the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series Xbox is 4K 120. Like that's going to be the base experience. The reality is that's like the pinnacle experience that maybe you will have if you have exactly the right TV, which is very expensive, way more expensive than the Xbox was, and the right cables, and you've set it up exactly right because you've read 50 different websites, and you're playing one of the handful of games that can actually do it, then, my friend, you're on the top of the mountaintop and you're breathing that very, very rarefied air and having a true, pinnacle gaming experience. But the idea that that's just the world we're all inhabiting whenever we play a game right now, that's a fiction. That's probably a whole other generation away before, every game we play is rendering at 4K 120. Right now, it's a very, very, very thin sliver of games that are delivering that performance for a very, very thin sliver of gamers who have invested the time and the money into making sure they have the best possible setup. And again, these monitors, I think, will at least solve part of that problem by just widening the array of displays out there that will make it possible to kind of get the best possible picture.
Something awesome to check out for all you gamers out there. Looking like they're going to be releasing late summer into fall and holiday season. You can go check out the Xbox Wire for the full blog post, pricing, info on all three of these monitors that will be in that design for Xbox product line. Gary, up next, let's play another one. You get to choose the next story. So here's another three that I'll hit you with. We have xCloud and Series X server blades, possibly out there in the wild that people are playing on. We have Space Jam the game and these awesome controllers sent out to cool influencers like you. And there's a new Xbox game case coming your way very, very soon.
I just want to be clear. We are going to get to all these stories, right? It's just a question of
no. We're not going to get to many of these stories. No. We're
okay. So some of these are going to get eliminated.
Oh, some of these are getting cut, Gary.
All right. Let's do the controllers then, because I did make the effort to I gathered up all my controllers and I brought them down onto my desk to do a lot of show and tell. So let's talk about the special edition controllers.
Gary, bust out those special edition Space Jam: A New Legacy the game controllers, because today Xbox and Digital Escape announced the aptly named Space Jam: A New Legacy the game, coming exclusively to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate perk as an Xbox Game Pass Ultimate perk beginning on July 1st, before releasing on Microsoft Store as a free-to-play title on the 15th, coming from IGN and Rebecca Valentine. She's got a cool little write-up here talking about the game and the controllers, but of course, a new legacy. The game is an arcade-style beat-em-up featuring the cast of the film, the result of a call from Xbox last December for fans to submit their ideas for a Space Jam game, and picking two winner concepts from Ricky in the US and, I'm going to mispronounce this one, Narina in India. Digital Eclipse has been making games since the 90s and most recently has been responsible for a number of arcade-style revivals like the Disney Afternoon Collection, Blizzard Arcade Collection, and Street Fighter 30th Anniversary. So, Gary, we saw the call to action. We see two winners selected. We see that Digital Eclipse is building the game out with those two, but we get to celebrate the upcoming movie and that big release. But you have the controllers in your hand. You got the special care package along with Paris. Tell me all about it.
I did not expect them to send all three controllers. When the box came, it was like, what the hell is this? They sent like a giant box and it has like a LeBron James action figure in it. And as you said, they did three different designs for this, and I'll show them in no particular order. I guess this would be considered kind of the main one. This is kind of the classic,
Yes, the
Toon Squad. This is
Yeah,
the kind of the
love
color
it.
of the basketball outfits that they wear, blue and orange. Is kind of a nice color scheme you can see there. This almost reminds me of like Nintendo Switch on the back, with the blue and the orange sides. But this is kind of a cool, these are colors that always go well together. And again, I guess if you want to play the bad guys,
Oh, who
you got the
doesn't?
Goon
The
Squad
Goon
right here. My
Squad, you
daughter already
know it,
claimed this one
Gary.
because she loved pink and purple are her two favorite colors. So she's
Yes.
going to be on the Goon Squad. Again, black and purple, always a good color combination. And then this one, which is a bit more, I guess, kind of abstracted, but I guess in the movie, there's a whole thing where they kind of go inside like a virtual cyber type world is part of the plot line. And so I think this one kind of reflects that element. This one kind of has like a very, almost like an internal kind of technical schematic kind of vibe. And again, you've got this kind of like cyan and black is kind of a trendy combo as well. So they sent me all three. And Mike, I want to have a whole separate conversation with you about this starting to get me down the beginning of a rabbit hole of collecting controllers. Because once you start to get a few of these limited edition controllers, you think, man, I have the beginnings of a cool collection here. I really don't need more than 3 controllers in my life. And there's 3 of us here in the house that play video games. I think I've got about 12 Series X controllers now because for whatever reason, and I don't know why this doesn't apply on the DualSense side, like they never do this with Sony controllers, as far as I can tell, but companies now really like to send out special controllers that are skinned with whatever it is they're promoting. We all saw the Outriders one recently with the Dwayne Johnson Zoa thing. I've got like a weird like Butterfinger yellow peanut butter type controller here as well. And so this is the beginning. If you want to, I totally understand. I was watching a video the other day about somebody who's really into collecting like Xbox One controllers and has like a really amazing collection of all these special edition and custom designs. I'm starting to see that. I've never really been a collector, but I'm starting to see the appeal. I've got way too many controllers. My wife's always starting to get a bit worried about me, like where are they all going to go? But I've got the beginnings of a good collection here. And then finally, before we go back to you, because I missed last week's show or whichever one it was when they unveiled the Design Lab. This is the Design Lab controller that I managed to make for myself. This is actually my favorite controller. This is my prime controller, the one that's mapped to me. Like when I log in with this controller, it goes straight to my profile. These are the colors of my beloved football team back in London, Tottenham Hotspur FC. They typically play in white, navy blue with a little bit of yellow. And again, this is the great beauty of the Design Lab, right? I mean, I don't know how many mathematical combinations are possible. I imagine it's in the billions, right? It's got to be. But you really can make anything that you want, and I've seen some really interesting custom designs. I can again see myself going down a rabbit hole of like ordering way too many different designs. Again, my daughter's already got a pink and purple one that she wants to do. This aesthetic really, really speaks to me. But yeah, the Space Jam controllers are fun. I love this whole thing of specialty. And then a lot of the ones that we've been getting, Mike, are really just, they send us to us because we're influencers, whatever you want to call it. We're in the media. We cover this kind of stuff, but they're not made available to the general public. As you mentioned, these ones actually are going on sale. So if you are looking to make a collection of kind of weird and wacky controllers, all 3 of these, I believe, are now available. I think like at Amazon and maybe directly from Microsoft. I'm not sure, but you can get these.
Oh, that's really cool. I'll have to look for the Goon Squad one because I like that. I also noticed you got the LeBron James toy action figure, which I thought was super cute. And I loved that Bugs Bunny Xbox Game Pass card in like the PSA grading booklet. I loved seeing that.
They make it look like a collectible sports card. Yeah, and they put it in like a little plastic case as well. But on the back, there's like a nice little code for a year of Game Pass Ultimate. I think I'm going to give that away to someone at some point on my stream, maybe. But yeah, it's a great package. I don't do too much. The people at Digital Eclipse, a lot of them are friends of mine, and they do a lot of these kind of licensed tie-in games. I'm interested to see what that game what that game actually looks like, especially since, if you remember, they kind of crowdsourced the design of that game. They had kind of an open competition for people to submit their ideas for a Space Jam game, and it will be interesting to see like how much of that ended up in the finished product of the game that they're going to put out there soon.
Really, really cool, Gary, and nice to see that. And of course, really cool to celebrate another Space Jam. Pretty wild to think about that we're going to get a second Space Jam with LeBron and the Toon Squad. Cannot wait to see that. And I think this one will be a special one to me because, of course, I grew up with basketball, love MJ and the original one. And now I'm really excited as like kind of a middle-aged adult who has followed basketball his whole life and knows the landscape of the league now. I'm excited to see who's on that goon squad, right? We have a WNBA player. We have some NBA players like Dame Dollar Sign. Klay Thompson's going to be in it. And that's really exciting. So a cool little movie tie-in video game, an awesome little influencer pack over there with Gary, and a fun movie coming your way, which is really, really great. Gary, I'll let you pick one more story because I know this is getting long. We got
Okay,
about
give
an
me the last
hour-long
two to choose
interview
from
coming your
because
way.
I have to
So
decide to pick one and then abandon one, right? One of these is going to get
abandon one.
jettisoned. All
Exactly.
right,
So
so let's hear it.
I'm gonna pull off a couple from the recycle bin here. Phil Spencer shed some light on the Halo Infinite release window, xCloud and the Series X server blades, or the new Xbox game cases.
What is the game cases? What is that?
So if you have been buying physical media recently, Gary, and you remember all of those old school Xbox game cases we used to buy back in the day, they are changing the look of the front of that with the game art.
Oh, I did not know that. What are they? Let's talk about this because actually this
Well,
is one
let's
I don't know
talk
much
about it
about.
right now.
What are the? Do we have a visual? Do we have an image? Like
Yep,
what
right
are the
here.
new boxes going to look like?
We have an image, and I'm actually going to pull in our producer for the
Oh,
day,
now, yeah. Okay.
our man, the
All
myth,
right.
Roger. Roger, you have the eye for all things design. So I'm going to let you and Gary take over, and I'll shed some of my piece. But this is going to come from IGN, a quick write up by Matt T. Kim. It says it appears the Xbox Series X and S retail game box is getting a slight redesign. Pre-order listings for games like Halo Infinite and Microsoft Flight Simulator are sporting new looks at retailers like Best Buy. As you can see, the old case is actually the same one that the Xbox One games used to retail in, except there's a Series X and S logo on the top right corner. By comparison, the new case completely removes the upper bar that reads Xbox in favor of a bigger box art logo and a top left corner banner denoting which Xbox systems the game is compatible with. So, Gary, I'll go to you first. What the heck do you think about this?
Yeah, this is interesting. This is actually I was pretty clued into the Xbox news for the past week. I knew about the server blades. I knew about the Phil Spencer stuff. I had not missed this at all. Maybe because I don't really buy like physical media anymore. I don't own a single. I don't know about you, Mike, but I don't own a single Xbox Series X game on a disc on physical media. I don't think I've even used that disc drive on the Series X. This is why I kind of wish they had released. I kind of wish they had done 3 SKUs, and maybe they still will. You know, the Series X $499 with the disc drive, Series S with scaled down hardware, no disc drive. I kind of would have liked, you know, an equivalent SKU to what the PlayStation 5 did with the digital edition. Give me a Series X with no disc drive for $399. And so for all of those reasons, I used 4K. I used my drive once to like play a Blu-ray disc on, but I don't put discs in anymore. Everything is just on the especially if you're talking about like what's the point of having quick resume if you're swapping discs all the time? That's like slow resume, like the slowest possible resume, because I'm like hunting around like where the fuck is the disc? Someone's put it back in the wrong box. What the hell? Hey, where's the calling out to your wife? Where's the disc for this thing? What have you done with it? You know, it's like nobody wants that. We're past all that. Why physical media is even that still so much of a thing? I personally don't get it. But if I must still look at boxes, let's figure out what kind of box I would most like to look at. I don't know. I mean, I would like to hear Roger is kind of the graphic design, the visual person here, what he thinks. To me, it kind of feels like different, but not necessarily better or worse. I used to kind of like the green band across the top because it was a nice identifier. Like you knew an Xbox game when you saw it because it has that green band across the top. They've gotten rid of it. I guess it means that the artwork on the front can now occupy more of the box, and it maybe it feels maybe that's more aesthetically pleasing, but I don't know. This kind of feels like they changed it for the sake of changing it, and this is going to be largely a matter of taste. For me, I don't really care, but it's interesting that they've changed their branding.
Yeah,
Roger, I'll kick it to you.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, for me, like at first, the original one I thought was fine, but the more I'm looking at it, it's so busy. There's so much stuff going on of it. Like, there's like 3 times where it says Series X on it in the original one, like in the top right corner in the badge. So this is like a lot more simplified, and I totally get why they would do that. But I just don't like the Xbox Series X and Xbox One. Just the way that they did the text. I think it just feels like a template. Like they just kind of threw it together. Like it just doesn't feel very purposeful. Doesn't feel integrated. I like that little black band of Xbox Series X dot Xbox One. I think that really adds a lot to it. So not having that, and I think also it's kind of weird. I don't know. There's probably a reason for it, but the fact that they don't say Xbox Series S is really weird. Like, I that's strange that they add Xbox One.
Well, you want
They
to
don't-
know why?
Why?
Because it's all digital.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's true. Oh shit, I forgot
Yeah.
about that. Never mind. Never mind. I'm a fake gamer. I'm a fake
He
gamer.
got you. He got you.
I got me.
got
He
him, I
fucking
got
got
him.
me.
You
God
got
damn
him.
it. God damn it. Okay, that makes sense then. Yeah, no, I think it's still, I think it's better. It's a better step, but it's I just doesn't feel too integrated to me. Feels kind of like
I
a
mean,
template.
it's a good point, but all of this extra information they have to put on the box now, Series X, and
Yeah.
to point out that this works across generations, is obviously a byproduct of the fact that these games can do this now. Back in the day, there was the original Xbox, and there were original Xbox games, and the 360 came out, and they were 360 games. They didn't have to explain to you whether they worked on the old or the new ones, because we all understood, no, this is the new game for the new console. Now that we are living in this kind of cross-generational era, where a game like Halo Infinite will work on the Series X and be optimized for Series X, but you can put that same disc in an Xbox One and it'll work. Obviously, it won't look as good, but it'll work just as well on that one. They obviously need to kind of eliminate consumer confusion as much as possible. Again, this is something where I think Xbox has not done a great job over the years. I've said it a million times. Xbox One, Xbox One S, Xbox Series X, Xbox One S, Xbox Series S. Like, there's a lot of confusion in their naming scheme, and some of it is due to the fact that we are now in this cross-generational era. So they do need to try and make it as plain and easy and accessible for when people go to Target or Walmart or Best Buy, wherever they go, and pick up a copy of the game. Well, I have an Xbox One, I have a Series S or whatever. Is this going to work on mine? Is this the right version? They do have to explain, whichever disc you bring home, it's going to work. And it's gonna be the correct version for your system, with smart delivery and all of that. So it is a little bit of extra information they have to put on the box. I'm sure they would love these box arts to be as clean and uncluttered as possible. The design question is, there's the same amount of information on each one of these boxes. Which one just looks better? Which one communicates the information and lets the artwork kind of sing, unobstructed as much as possible? And I guess the argument would be, I can see how the new one is it's not perfect, but I can see how it seems a little better and cleaner and brighter than the previous one.
Yeah, I'm a fan of the old version. I like the big green banner. I love the optimization patch. I was always a big fan of that badge being on it, but you can definitely tell the new version has a much cleaner box style where you're going to get the most out of that cover art, and I think that's really why you're going for that, is those sweet, sweet cover arts and being able to see that. I don't like the big white box. It just kind of feels off and feels kind of clunky, but you know what? I'm more of a digital gamer, so this really won't affect me. I actually have two pieces on this. My first one is I will show some old school physical media. And
there you
one
go.
thing that I will always miss,
God.
and this is one of my favorite games, Conker's Bad Fur Day Live and Reloaded, but I will always miss this big orange Xbox Live online enabled bar. I think this just used to scream at me all the time, knowing that you were going to play this game online, and just that bright orange bar letting you know that live is enabled on it was always so special. And on the opposite side, since I have gone all digital, I think I went all digital towards the end of the Xbox One generation, probably about 3 or so years ago. It feels like a long time now. I don't remember the last time I bought a physical game and physical game case. But one thing I do notice is the game tiles. So the game tiles shows essentially the game box art. And I've been let down a couple of times with the game tiles and a little disappointed. I kind of point to sports titles and the special edition versions of those games. When you think about Madden, you think about NBA 2K, you have on the Madden side the GOAT edition, you have on the NBA 2K side the Mamba edition this year. And I splurged on getting this Mamba edition, and I'm really excited about the box art of having Kobe Bryant on there. I love the look of it, and I want that to be the game tile inside of my games library on the Xbox hard drive. And for some reason, I don't get that special edition cover art. I get the Dame Dollar Sign basic one, and I'm like, what is up with this? I don't like that the game tiles sometimes don't match up with the versions you buy. I had a friend whose Fortnite game tile actually didn't update for like years. It was just the original one, and finally kicked on recently with a new version. And it was funny to hear that story. But I think as I move away from physical copies of games in the boxes, I still want that box art feel on those game tiles, but I'm missing something with the special editions. It's just not clicking on the back end and showing that on the game tiles. Maybe they choose to do or do not that, but it does or hurts a little bit not having that Mamba edition.
Yeah, I hear that. Different companies have taken different approaches to that. EA, I think, does a better job of that. I have FIFA 21 installed on my Xbox right now, and I had it installed since before the Series X, special edition upgrade thing was available. When it got upgraded, the tile did get updated as well, and now you can tell that I've got the super fancy edition of it. But you're right. Honestly, so many of these games, these ultimate legendary editions, where you're paying up to 120. I just saw this the other day. I was browsing around the Xbox store for some of these, like for Battlefield 2042, like legendary ultimate, whatever they call it, or Back for Blood has like an ultimate edition. You're looking up to $120. And a lot of the stuff that you get that they throw in to justify that price point is just a bunch of digital crap, right? Like, it's really not. I really feel like it's worth. Sometimes the stuff that it's actually worthwhile, like you get a whole the season pass content, things you'd be buying anyway, like that's all baked in. But then they just throw in just like basically a bunch of like digital stickers and tchotchkes and just cheap, the kind of cheap crap that you redeem for like 1 million tickets at the skee ball place down by the pier, like the pencil eraser, whatever the digital version of like a pencil eraser is, like it's not that exciting. And so the least they can do is like when you're looking at your Xbox screen is when you look at that tile is like you want like I know what you mean, Mike. You want that like gold plated, platinum gilt edged, tile to remind you, oh yeah, I got the baller edition of this game. Absolutely.
Totally, Gary. That's just one thing I noticed. And new game cases coming your way. But let's pause to hear a quick word from our sponsors and then kick you on over to the Sea of Thieves interview with myself and Greg and the team from Sea of Thieves and Rare.
This podcast is brought to you by ExpressVPN. Ladies and gentlemen, did you know that Netflix and a bunch of the other digital services you could be using have different content in different regions? And if you're not in that region, like I'm over here in the United States, I can't see what's happening over on Netflix UK, right? That is until ExpressVPN gets in there. ExpressVPN lets you change your online location so you can control where you want Netflix to think you're located. It's like some spy stuff, right? Like you just want it to think you're in Japan. You want it to think that you're in England. You want it to think that you're in Canada. You go in and use the ExpressVPN app, you set that, and guess what? Netflix looks at it and is like, oh, this guy's in Canada or Japan or the UK. This is great. This is easy. They have almost 100 different server locations, so you can gain access to thousands of new shows. This works with many other streaming services too, the BBC iPlayer, YouTube, and more. YouTube, very helpful, let me tell you. Of course, why do we know so much about ExpressVPN? Because the one, the only cool Greg Gettys uses this. Of course, cool Greg loves his cartoons. He loves watching stuff on Netflix. And when he ran out of cartoons, he needed this subscription to go see what was happening in other countries. And he's still watching cartoons to this day. So you should be like, cool Greg, watch some cool cartoons. Why choose ExpressVPN over the other VPNs? I'm glad you asked. Blazing fast speeds. You can stream in HD with zero buffering. It's compatible with all your devices, phones, laptops, media consoles, smart TVs, and more, and it encrypts your data. ExpressVPN has the added benefit of encrypting your data so you can browse the web securely. And a personal bullet point I'll throw in, ExpressVPN has been supporting Kinda Funny for years. So if you are in the market for a VPN, you want to keep all your information secret and safe. You want to keep the apps not knowing where you are. ExpressVPN has been good to us, so we should be good to them. So be smart. Stop paying full price for streaming services and only getting an access to a fraction of their content. Get your money's worth at expressvpn.com/kindafunny. Don't forget to use our link, expressvpn.com/kindafunny, to get an extra 3 months of ExpressVPN for free. Our next sponsor, why, ladies and gentlemen, it is HVMN. If you didn't know, sitting at your desk can reach you for that sugar-loaded latte or that sweet and quote-unquote healthy snack bar. That's terrible. It's loaded with sugar. You don't want that. Take a small step to improve your day and avoid the sugar crash by mixing in some keto powder with your coffee or trying HVMN keto. I always want to say keto food bars. How do we know about HVMN? Because the one and only Big Kev Dog uses this. That's right. He ordered a whole bunch and he's been snacking on those and enjoying them quite a bit. And of course, Paul likes it because he's not eating garbage, because Big Kev Dog would eat out of the trash if you gave him the chance. But HVMN, it's not that. Trying to lose a little weight, sleep a little better, or not feel so groggy during the day, Health via Modern Nutrition can help you do all those things with a few small keto-friendly choices to improve your metabolism throughout the day. HVMN is is a nutrition company that takes the mystery out of counting macros. They're results-driven, modern nutrition for modern lifestyles with less sugar than their competitors. Their products provide lifestyle and habit upgrades that help their customers become healthier and better versions of themselves. By using real organic ingredients, HVMN has made keto and lifestyle improvements easy with healthy and low sugar options that are great for you and deliciously satisfying. HVMN offers single items like MCT oil, keto food bars, and keto collagen powder, or you can grab a kit that includes all the essentials for an everyday discount. Whether you're curious about keto, want to improve your performance, lose weight, or boost brain and body wellness, HVMN will have a non-intimidating solution for you and in tasty flavors. Right now, HVMN is offering our listeners an additional 10% off your first order when you go to hvmn.com/kindafunny. Embrace healthy living today, just like Kevin did at Paul's request. Go to hvmn.com/kindafunny for 10% off your first order. That's hvmn.com/kindafunny for 10% off.
Welcome back, everyone. Of course, we have a fun little interview talking all about Sea of Thieves and the latest Pirate Life update. So I brought in a good friend, my good guy, Greg Miller, to join me and talk all things pirates. But Greg, you're not the star of the show here. We got two really important cast members joining us alongside me from the Sea of Thieves team. We have executive producer Joe Neitz and creative director Mike Chapman. Guys, welcome in. Thanks so much for joining me and Greg here on the Kind of Funny Xcast. How you both doing today?
Very well. Yeah,
Good.
It's been a
Yeah.
interesting week, but a good one. Yeah. So
I was gonna say, talk to me about the being on the other side of this week. You're building up to this Pirate's Life. You're gonna drop it. You guys are stoked about it, let alone the fact that it's only been revealed for a week after that. Like, what's it like now to have it in everybody's hands?
It doesn't feel real, honestly. In any way, shape, or form. I think seeing the kind of response to it, which is looks really positive, has been amazing. But the whole thing is so surreal. The whole thing is like a pinch me kind of moment, right? Like bringing Disney to the world of Sea of Thieves is a dream come true, and you can't really, for me, I can't really overstate that. But the fact it's roller coaster ride, it not leaking is such a huge deal, and now to actually see it out and see people actually play through it, I pinch myself every day. It's incredible, amazing.
Yeah, I bet. And then Joe, it would be a similar question for you, but I feel like on top of the fact, because I guess my story is tied up in this question, right? On top of the fact that you nail Pirate's Life, and I want to talk about that of like, I can't believe how much the first Tall Tale gives the feeling of the ride, but I want to save that. On top of nailing that, on top of having this license, what is it like then to have this moment that I feel so few live games get, which is this almost re-debut, almost like this another launch, because it has been, of course, Sea of Thieves has been out forever. It's had a community forever, but it's been that thing of no matter how many people tell me I should play Sea of Thieves, I'm like, I'll get to it. Now, when this one dropped, I finally jumped in and I've been blown away at how good this game is. Like, what is that like to have a second release date?
We were chatting about this the other day. I think Mike and I, that kind of feeling, it definitely feels like that. And it's, if we look back to a few years ago at kind of launch, it was we had some scale issues, we had some sentiment and feedback issues, right, from players. Some people loved it, some people wanted more. Fair enough. But this time, our scale has worked because we were really prepared for it, and we saw a ton of people come in, a lot more than we would normally see, and that we've seen kind of over the first half of the year. But that's kind of all worked, and like you say, the sentiment's been great, and so it does feel like that kind of moment, that kind of buzz, and it's kind of new to us because it's the first time we've worked on a service like this, right? And so
Sure.
We're kind of finding our way as we go and learning a lot as we go. But we definitely wanted to Mike's point, keep this a secret. It was the biggest kind of deal for us that we wanted to, be there, part of the Xbox and Bethesda show, and just surprise people, but not just with the announce of what it was, but also, and now it's coming in like 10 days, right? And so to see that excitement and then, whoa, like, through that whole trailer, the surprise, we layered it up purposefully. And so, it's been amazing. Like, it really has. And for the team that's been working on this for pretty much the last 15 months, really, since we entered, since we entered lockdown, basically, we kind of came back and we're like, hey, we're going to go build this. And, oh no, we've got to go build it at home. But it's been an amazing thing for the whole studio. So yeah, very, very surreal, but exciting.
Wow, that's really exciting there, guys. And yeah, a lot of momentum heading into this week and ending the week off really strong with a lot of positivity. I guess we should probably start from the beginning, right? You talk about how this didn't leak and how you're working with Disney. I guess let's just have some fun telling some stories. Who came up with this idea? I mean, it's a match made in heaven to bring Sea of Thieves and Pirates of the Caribbean together. Who said, yo, let's go talk to Disney and have some fun?
Yeah. Well, we had a meeting 2 years ago, pretty much at E3 2 years ago, between us and Disney that we kind of went into with just an open mind. And I don't even know who set it up, right? Like, it was what someone in the Xbox side was like, hey, Disney are interested in having a chat with you. And we were like, oh, cool, let's go have a chat. And it was very much an open conversation, really. So, we met with John Drake, who I think you know. We met with some others, Luigi, Priori, and it was just a really interesting discussion, and straight away, like, there was a lot of respect on both sides, right? For they understood Sea of Thieves, they had a lot of respect for what we'd built. Obviously, Mike is the biggest Disney fan, and kind of just in terms of knowledge of everything related to Disney and Pirates of the Caribbean, and really clearly from that first meeting, there was just a lot of just mutual respect and love for each other's kind of worlds and that we've created, and we kind of left that meeting kind of with almost an open invitation to go and have a think about, like, if we wanted to do something potentially, to come back with some ideas, right? And so it was just very open, very kind of fun discussion. And Mike and I walked away from that meeting, went around the corner, put our arms around each other, and we're like, we're gonna do something special here. Made sure we were out of sight. But and so Mike then went away from that point on. And like I say, 2 years ago, that was at E3. On the little square outside LA Live was where we were kind of arm in arm. And yeah, Mike came back to the studio and started thinking about, what if we were to do something together, how would we do that? What would we do? And what are the key things to kind of consider? So I can hand over to Mike to kind of talk a bit through that creative process from that point.
Yeah, I mean that's end it right there. Like, we're going to be talking there for 4 hours. I'll try and keep this brief. But there's just so much going on there. I think the type of pirates that you see in Sea of Thieves, it's not just sea battles and long voyages and scurvy. It is the full pirate package, right? Adventures on islands. It's all the the kind of goofy humor and the romantic view of pirates that so many of us have grown up with. You can trace it back to the Pirates of the Caribbean attraction in some ways, but if you're of a certain age group, you probably play Monkey Island growing up, and the type of experience that represents, the humor and the just that fantastical take on a pirate world. So I think right from the off, like, what Sea of Thieves represents and its version of pirates that it shows it's the Treasure Island version. It's the version that inspires kids. It's about breaking the rules. It's about the freedom to have your adventures. So that broad view of pirates that it's almost aspirational. It's not like dry historical and it's all about theft. No, it's actually about this wonderful ability to head out on the horizon and have this kind of boundless seas to explore. So the
It's that
spirit
whimsy, right?
Yeah,
It's that whimsy of pirates.
absolutely perfect word, and I think the spirit of our game and the spirit of Rare in many ways, and our studio has been tapping into that kind of whimsical characters, colourful worlds. I mean, the type of Sea of Thieves has always kind of had that. So I think that meeting that Joe refers, that first meeting, I mean, my mind's blown already in terms of we're not just talking about adding skins to our game. There's a potential here to do something, integrating it into our world. And at the same time, I also believe that just because you're a fan of something, and just because I'm a fan of Disney, and that spirit is alive and well in Sea of Thieves, that's not the reason to do it. There's still got to be an authentic story that we're going to tell. And if we're going to go anywhere near integrating our world that has its own world and stories and lore and characters with Disney, it's got to kind of be done properly. So finding the right story was key. And it all kind of taps into kind of the name, right? A pirate's life. What does it mean to be a pirate in the Sea of Thieves? And when you die in Sea of Thieves, there's a ferryman character who ferries you back to the land of the living, because the pirate's life is eternal in the Sea of Thieves. So then that question of, what if Davy Jones found the Sea of Thieves? Would he want to create a new Davy Jones locker there? How would that change the fate of the characters in our world and in this epic struggle for the freedom of pirates in Sea of Thieves? So that was kind of the in for the story. But then when you look at Pirates of the Caribbean, it's got the tone, it's got the humor, it's got all the fantastical nautical legends come to life. So I think that's where, with the right seed to the story, they just, hopefully, everyone agrees that they just, it feels meant to be. I think that's what we said.
100%.
If we do this right and we do it authentically, it's meant to be. And for the people that have that affinity for the attraction, they've grown up with it, and they've got the affinity for the movies, like, we could create magic. And I think that's what we've tried to do. So yeah, it's been a real labor of love. It's been an absolute privilege to work on it.
I think, yeah, jumping off of that to something actually go back to what you're talking about with the trailer you guys revealed at the Xbox showcase, Bethesda showcase. When it starts, and one of the first things we see are the prisoners bartering with the dog with the keychain in his mouth. My first reaction was like, oh, they're doing the pirates bit, because I've seen so many other games and other cartoons and everything else reference that because it's such a touchstone. But then I think in our reaction, you see me like, oh, well, wait, and like get deeper and deeper because of like what you all start doing with it. But to go back to it, of like, you talk about being, meant to be, and that they integrate so perfectly, like that, I think, again, is where I want to compliment you on the first tall tale for A Pirate's Life, where I am not the Disney guy by any stretch of the imagination, but I have very, very visceral memories tied to Pirates of the Caribbean, scaring me to death in the second grade, and then coming back to it, now as an adult a couple of times, the attraction. And so playing that, like, it is that I would love to talk to you and hear your stories about creating that, because it is such a video game version, not of the attraction, but of the feel, of the emotions, of the pacing. Like, how as you're slowly going into it, right? You have your own drop, you have the dead men tell no tales. Like, I was playing it with Mike and we were streaming it, and one of our friends, Chris Anka, popped in, and he was just, because I was complimenting this, and I'm like, this feels like the ride. And he popped in, he's like, the only thing they're missing is the smell, right? It doesn't have that dank, cavernous smell, but like the people were there, the references were there. Like, did you know that you needed to nail that out of the gate? Was that something you wanted to, like, where does that come from? How did you do that?
Yeah, absolutely. The trying to, I mean, it's such a, if you've experienced the attraction, and you're right, the smells, the sights, the sound, all of that stuff is what puts you in that moment and transports you to that world. So doing it in Sea of Thieves was that first opportunity to create that kind of magical moment for people playing it. But at the same time, it's that kind of balance of, you don't want to copy it directly, so it feels just like a straight homage, because it's not the level design and the exact rooms, they're not identical, deliberately so. So it was this kind of idea of the music, the sound effects, the sound of the rushing waterfalls, even the lighting. If you ever hear Ron Gilbert talk about Monkey Island, the reason why that opening island in Monkey Island has that blue, Mealy Island is all blue, is because of the blue from the ride. It's the same hue of blue, to basically plant you in that scene. So again, right, we've got to have this blue and green lighting illuminating these waterfalls, but it's all based on this notion of, what if the attraction is the attraction because of the limitations of the ride system? It's about getting people through this experience. But what if we almost imagined the source material for what the attraction was? Imagine the attraction as a real place that had a ride based on it, and then trying to tap into that, the themes, the sights, the sounds, and almost like recreate the director's cut version. That was the goal. But then
Easy, not a big deal. Take one of the most like loved attractions of all time and be like, oh, no, let's director's cut it.
But then it's lovely that you've said that the pace is so important, and I actually believe that, for someone starting out in game design, you can learn so much about game design by visiting Disneyland. The sense of pace, the environmental storytelling, the sights, the sound, the use of big vertical castles to orient yourself. When you'd sit down with a level designer learning that craft, that's the kind of thing you'd be talking about, line of sight, using lighting. So Disney have that craft absolutely down. And the idea of not hand-holding someone, but using the space to craft this story where we're never breaking immersion, we're never putting a cutscene in front of you, you're just right there living it. But it all comes down to some of the sound effects that you hear in there are the sound effects from the original attraction. When you hear that seagull in the first room, that is from the attraction. That is the actual sound that Disney provided us with those samples, and we put that right in there. The whistling, howling wind through the caverns, that's the original audio. And then a mix of, and again, that striking the balance of being evocative of it, but putting a fresh spin on it. So there's a mix of, Paul Frees, the kind of original kind of cavern voice that you hear, the Dead Men Tell No Tales. That's the original VO, but then we re-recorded new VO for the purposes of this tale, but in the style of that classic stuff. So we did recording sessions with Disney where we actually used the same mics from the 1960s, the vintage mics, to get that same vintage sound and passed it all through the same processing. So it's been an obsessive process.
awesome.
That probably comes across.
It does. It works.
That sounds like a ton of fun right there. What was it like with the team you brought up? Of course, we've all been living through COVID, and to have this big kind of grab with the pitch and the opportunity to do this and then go into development and share this energy with all of your team and then to work from home. What was that like? Was that wind out of your sails, or were you still able to keep the excitement with the team and have some fun creating this?
So it's an interesting one because it was 2 years ago we came back from that first E3, and we like after every E3 we always do like an all hands meeting with the whole studio where we're like, here's all the great feedback we've had from players and here's what we showed or whatever. But we were like, and also we had a couple of meetings and one of them was really, really cool and exciting. And so we talked about who we met with, and we were like, look, so it's in our court now to go figure out like, what do we want to do here? Can we come up with a creative? Can we go figure out the business stuff as well, which is an entire separate conversation and one that's probably less interesting for this. But how do we make that work in a service? And it's something we do, but we didn't want to charge for, right? We didn't want to just like a traditional DLC thing that we'll go and sell for and split our audience. It was like, no, it has to go into our game the same way everything else does. So that was some added kind of complication. But so it came, 2 years we came back and did that. We went and had the meetings, but it was January. When we went across to 2020, January 2020, when we went across to Disney and took them through the creative pitch, which is basically what you play now, but in PowerPoint form, right? Which was literally concepts showing all of the tales, all of the story, and the Disney team were just like, yes, this is amazing, right? Like this is like we just have to go make this. And so while we continued to figure out all the business stuff, we actually just went off and kicked off the development work with our team, kind of the planning stuff in February. And really, we were just about starting in kind of March when this happened, right? When we were all like, oh, we're going to have to go work from home and figure out how to do that. But genuinely, I think having this to kind of focus on for everyone across the team, to be just focus on something that was so exciting and so cool, and that everybody, there's so many, like Mike is clearly kind of the one of the most avid Disney fans that I've ever kind of met in terms of his knowledge and appreciation for Disney and for Pirates of the Caribbean. But there's so many people like that at the studio because there's so many people like that around the world, right? And because it's such an incredible just kind of company and history and legacy that that Disney has, and Mike will talk to it far more eloquently than I ever can. But our team was so passionate to do this and make this the most just amazing update that we've ever made. And the different elements of the team, the music, the audio, the environment, working on such new exciting stuff that we've never seen in Sea of Thieves before with some of these places and environments that we built. And so I think there was no better motivation and no better thing to keep us focused on while the world was somewhat chaotic around us, and why everyone was going through difficult kind of personal circumstances, right? Everybody had different challenges in the last year and stuff. So but it would definitely, I think, provided us with a purpose and a focus and something to really focus our energies and passion on. And so I think it was a real positive in that sense, right? So
Did it? And I'm not fishing for exacts, but did it push your initial release plan? Like, was this were you guys trying to get this done sooner, or was it very much like we're entering and we don't know what we're doing, so we're going to see how long it takes?
I'll kind of I'll be honest, it was still the same time frame, but we were kind of loose in terms of we didn't set a specific date to the team, but we kind of had a year or so in mind in our in terms of the development that we wanted to do, and when we wanted to give some freedom to the team in terms of planning, in terms of scoping, in terms of stuff, but the kind of the boring answer is that there's a financial year planning thing as part of Microsoft, but also there's the E3 thing that's coming there around that time. And so I think it was always, I think this was always going to be something that we wanted to reveal at E3, but we were kind of, let's give the team some freedom to go and figure out if we can do this without just going, look, we're going for next year E3, let's go. And it was more like, as we as we started building out those plans, it looked like we could fit it in around that time frame. We had to fold it into our seasonal approach and updates too. But yeah, definitely, and that's again one of the most amazing things as well, is that we managed to deliver it in the time frame that we wanted. And I'll be honest, if like Rare's strengths are, and this is purely down to how the things we focus on prioritize, is that like game experience and creating new kind of innovative things is absolutely the strength of the studio and the thing that we push and we prioritize above all else. Like timely delivery is possibly lower on the list of priorities, and that comes from top down in terms of just what we focus on, right, and what we care about the most. But to be able to actually deliver all of that in the whole package, right, where we actually managed to kind of steer towards where we wanted to, whilst also delivering this incredible update and delivering on all the dreams that I think Mike and Tim had for this, because there's so many Easter eggs hidden away in there, right, that like throughout all of it. It's a absolute passion and project, a labor of love for the whole team. And it's been as EP, it's been a privilege to witness the team go after this and do this in the time, like in the last year and so, because I am a bit privileged. I get to be a bit far away from the detail, right, and I get to see the video updates that we send across to Disney as it was being built, and kind of sitting there and watching through all the tales and seeing how they come together and from that original pitch. And just I've just been witnessing the team do something incredible, and it's been an absolute privilege.
That's awesome. You talk about the focus of the team and what you guys were focusing on the project, and then of course the original pitch. The question I have is me now looking at the results, right? I think one of the things I've seen the most in terms of, obviously I've seen so many people talk about how much they like Pirates Life, but the other thing I've seen is multiple articles saying, hey, like, this is great single player content. Like, obviously you can play with a crew, you can have a whole thing, but like you can play this alone and have a good time, which had always been one of the caveats people had given me about Sea of Thieves. Greg, I think you'd like this game, but you need a crew, and I know you're not a multiplayer guy, so like, blah, 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 blah. Was that a bullet point you had on the slide from the beginning of like, we're going to make Pirates Life and we want it to be an entry point for a solo player?
Yeah, I think there's lots of different answers to that, but I think, I mean, firstly, that because you're integrating another world into our existing world, that straight away speaks to you're going to bring an audience in that maybe hasn't discovered Sea of Thieves before. So there's that part of it in terms of that responsibility of giving people a spectacular entry point to our world where they want to continue discovering more about this game that we've created. But I think we've done Tall Tales before. There's 5 Tall Tales in a Pirate's Life, and we've done 11. So we've done a lot of content like that before, and we've tried to push and give people magical experiences in those as well. But I think because of the nature of Pirates of the Caribbean and the nature of that Disney connection, it kind of demands that more immersive, cinematic, a greater sense of awe and wonder. It kind of speaks very much to that. So some of our other tales have that, but they've also got quite cerebral puzzle solving. So, you really get that sense of discovery and solving things. Whereas this felt like, no, we want to give people their chance to live their take on a Pirates of the Caribbean movie. We want to give you all the physical set pieces and stunts that you'd imagine in a movie. We want to immerse you in an original story that it weaves together elements of Pirates of the Caribbean with their existing lore, and it moves their world forwards as well. So yeah, and taking people to new locations. Every tale takes place in a brand new location. So, underwater world for the first time, the Sea of the Dam for the first time. So it's just that, the showmanship of trying to bring the showmanship of Disney into it, which is immersing people in this, hopefully imaginative adventure where they can get lost in it.
Yeah, it's interesting though, the question that you ask, because it's kind of one of the ongoing hottest topics, I guess, within our community and even outside of it, right? Yeah. That kind of like Sea of Thieves at its heart, and since the start of this, from our original pitch, players creating stories together, we wanted to create the shared world adventure game. The SWAG is the acronym there. We had that in the original pitch. But we know that as we've continued to grow this, right, we've continued to add like narrative as well into our shared world, that kind of that clamor, I guess, that ask for a bit more control over your experience and how you like whether you interact with other players or not, like that is a continued conversation. And I think we knew kind of going into this as well, we'd see some feedback around that too. And so parts of these tales take part in the Sea of the Damned, where you're kind of like just with you and or on your own, or you and your crew. But then some are also in the shared world as well, which is obviously like we're super passionate about. Sea of Thieves as a shared world experience. It's like nothing else. I think when you have those incredible encounters with other players, it really is. But we are listening and continually having conversations around, like, you know, if we want to continue growing Sea of Thieves, which we obviously do, and you know, how do we service that need? How do we service that kind of ask, really? But in a way that doesn't take away from what is super special about the kind of shared world. So it's an interesting one. I think it's one that we're going to continue to discuss. And Mike and I, next Friday, I think we're going to go and have some drinks and some food and kind of celebrate a little bit, but also talk about the future. I think, and that'll be one of the topics as well. I think.
I have to imagine, like, yeah, you're on the precipice here of a brave new future, right? Like, again, like, you guys have been, Sea of Thieves has been out for a while. You've had a community for a while, obviously, but now you have this influx of players like myself that are totally 100% in love with it. Join the Sea of Thieves subreddit, following everybody on Twitter. Like, I'm in, right? And I want more content, but I'm one of these people that is there being like, well, that's interesting. And like the MMOs I play, right? Like, you can toggle off PvP. So like, you know, when me and Mike were out doing our stuff and we ran into other people and Kevin was up on the crow's nest and I was doing, they were like, let's attack them. And then, you know, 2 nights ago when Mike wouldn't respond to my messages of, do you want to play Sea of Thieves with me? And I was running solo and I was trying to bring back my skulls and I was just getting destroyed. I'm like, leave me alone. I'm solo. I just want to drop this stuff off. And I could not do it. I was just getting killed. I was like, I could go for a toggle right now.
Yeah. So
I think the experience that, like, it's been out since March 2018. The experience is so broad now, and there's been people playing our game since the alphas and betas, all closed betas. They've been with us on that journey the whole time. Some of them have got, you know, gold wallets, multiple of millions. They're pirate legends. They know everything inside and out. They don't even sail by the world map anymore. They know that Crescent
Outrageous.
Island is north
Wow.
of. They're actual, you know, true navigators of this world. And then, but the way the progression system works, where you could have played for hundreds of hours, you can bring your friend in and they can seamlessly join you because there's no power progression. You know, it's about the stories that you have in this world. So many players, I mean, they've got different passions about Sea of Thieves. Some people love the PvP. They love the kind of purity of encountering unknown people out there in the waves. Some people love the tall tales and that idea of this pirate narrative that we've created. And some people just like to kick back, treat it as a virtual chat room and relax and fish and just have all these immersive adventures. And I think that broad appeal, because the theme is so broad, so many people love that, you know, fantastical take on pirates. I think that's a kind of a privilege, but there is that responsibility there in terms of you can't cater to any one audience. We've got to continue to bring new people in, take them on that journey, give them these magical Sea of Thieves experiences, but we also, the people that have been with us since the start, we also want to surprise and delight them. And I think A Pirate's Life kind of speaks to both. But yeah, definitely positioned as what a great way to discover our world by way of Pirates of the Caribbean. Seeing the world through the eyes of Jack Sparrow and these newcomers. What a wonderful way to introduce it. That was the thinking, at least.
No, I think it works really well, and I think, you know, that's why I call that whimsy earlier. Is because that's what this game totally is to me, and I think I had that wrong in my head of, oh, okay, it's this pirate game you play with your friends. I got it, and then actually getting invested in playing with Mike, and Mike's been along for this experience with me, right? Of like me being like, and not understanding. We're playing the tall tale, and I'm like, when we're wrapping up, he's like, "What do you think?" I'm like, "I had a great time." I was like, "It's interesting. Like, there's no HUD. I thought there'd be this or that, yada yada." And then, like, when we actually went off and we were doing the next day when we were running around the stream, and I was like, "Oh, like the map is the map. Like, I have to look at the map, and then you're not putting waypoints out because you want me using the spyglass." And I was like, I get it. I get what you're doing. And like finding the little treasure map and then finding on the big map where it is and going there. And like, I'm like, Mike, I'm digging up a treasure. Like, it's beautiful and fantastic. And I'm obviously, you know, 2 steps in. I can't wait to continue my journey.
That's so awesome. It's great to see their smile when you bring that up, Greg, because I smile and feel that too. And it's so much fun to experience that with your friends. I was telling, you know, you two, as you guys came in, of like, I finished all 5 tall tales last night and I absolutely loved every moment of it. And it gave me an awesome opportunity to connect with friends that I haven't played with in a long time, right? I got to play with Greg, who is a single player guy. He doesn't really want to jump on the multiplayer hype that I'm always on. And then playing with my good friend Miles from Windows Central and him telling me stories about how much fun he had, talking about you two and how excited I was to see you guys the next day. And to experience that difference of here's a new player, here's a veteran player, and here I am in the middle, and how much fun I had, and looking back on it, the awesome experience that you all created and everything you added, right? I think now when we look in and we keep talking about this update, you add in new enemy types for us to go out there and find in the world. You add an awesome, fun weapon. What was that like of, you brought it up, we have these veteran players, we have these new players, and finding that balance to cater to almost everybody, but also to certain audiences. Why did you think now's the time, let's add in new enemy types and a new weapon?
I mean, it's definitely always a question of like when that would happen. We've always wanted to do that, and I think some of the themes, the phantoms, the ocean crawlers, the crustacean-like creatures that you see now in the world. If you go back to our original art book, like we explored kind of concepts of the Sea of the Damned world and the world of an underwater world of the Sirens. And again, it's nautical folklore brought to life. So that why now? Like you've got that platform with this wonderful story to introduce it. So you're not just adding content or mechanics to the world with no context. You've got that lore-based reason to explain why they've come into the world, which makes it all make sense, and people can role play more effectively. Yeah, it's just a case of the shared world is this. It's this mixing pot of ingredients, and we never want to take content out. And the reason why I smiled when Greg was talking about the design decisions around the spyglass, the choices around the map, and then that's what creates those pirate stories. And the combination of all these mechanics in the shared world, they combine in different ways, in ways that feel unique to you. And they're those real magical Sea of Thieves moments where you go, I feel like I'm in Master and Commander. I feel like I'm in Pirates of the Caribbean. This game's making me feel things that hopefully no other game's going to make you feel, in terms of everything's physical, everything's a tool, everything's toy-like. So things work the way you'd expect. It's not about throwing a bunch of HUD on screen. So in terms of the specifics of the question, it was just about like, it was an opportunity with the Pirates Live to be authentic to the world of Pirates of the Caribbean, but fundamentally let's move the world of Sea of Thieves forwards. Like the Tall Tales are a great entry point for new players, give you that cinematic experience, but we want to stick around and we want to have content in that shared world that enriches those core Sea of Thieves stories. So now you're not just going to islands fighting skeletons, you're encountering ocean crawlers and phantoms, you're diving down to shipwrecks, you used to be seeing sharks, now you're seeing sirens as well. So it just feels like the game's moved forward in a Sea of Thieves way because of this partnership. It's not just about the Tall Tales.
Yeah, that's how it feels. And you captured that so well. And it was really cool to not only play the 5 Tall Tales, but then to sail around with Greg and Kevin and to encounter those enemies right out of the blue. I didn't know, oh, they're going to be on all the islands. And now it does feel organic. It feels right when I'm going to travel around and just play the game. So you guys did a really good job at that. I want to talk about going deep underwater. Of course, the Sunken Kingdom on Tall Tale number 2. You get this grandiose reveal, right? And you get this moment of, oh, wow, this is awesome. You guys created this world and this shared world. And it's so wild to think of, like, we were just up there with everyone and in the normal game, but now I'm down here in this just gigantic piece that they created. What was that like, creating that set piece down there?
Oh, that bit was, and there's a great example here. That the swim down, we knew we wanted to move you seamlessly down there. Like, again, that idea of things should work the way you'd expect. So you just want to dive off the ship, seamlessly swim down there. But then thinking about that, it was like, well, initially it was like, oh, how are we going to make that entertaining? You're going to have to swim down for minutes deep below the ocean. How is that going to be fun? And straight away it's like, no, that bit's that's the privilege. That's the ladder from Metal Gear Solid 3, where you've just got the theme tune playing as you're climbing the ladder. This endless ladder. That's the privilege as a designer, because you've got the undivided attention of the player as they swim down. So that's where the thinking came in terms of, let's curate the swim down in terms of where we put the coral in the air pocket, so we can control how you come down. So we can just frame this beautiful reveal of the Black Pearl, that iconic ship that everyone loves from the movies. It's just about giving this immersive opening with the Siren Queen kind of singing to you, luring you down, and then having this awesome reveal of the world for the first time with the Black Pearl sitting there. It was just about, everything was about curating and crafting that moment. But in a way that hopefully feels natural, and it doesn't feel like we're not taking control. We're just leading you down there, giving you this immersive experience. So that bit was spent a lot of time trying to get that right in terms of the choice of music, the lighting, and as you say, Mike, it's the first time any player's ever been to this underwater world. So the tale needed to serve as an introduction to the sirens and what they're all about, and the idea of them. They've built this civilization out of all the shipwrecks, in a way, trying to make that connection to all the players' shipwrecks that have sunk down, all the failures of pirates. They've built this civilization out of them, and they're going to do the same to the Black Pearl, and you're there to stop them and save the crew. It was the right kind of focus for the tale, sure.
Yeah. And just on that, the masterpiece, I think, of all of that, actually, that tale, is that there are so many Easter eggs and things to discover for our existing community, and things, nods to stuff that already exist in the game, like the chest that cries and fills your boat with water and stuff, and like how, like, I won't spoil it for those that haven't kind of discovered it as part of this, but how all of this weaves into our existing lore and takes that forward, while also using kind of the guest characters and, like, the Black Pearl and stuff, like how that all weaves together. It's just like, I think that's what you've always had in mind, right, Mike? It's like, it's always about that, our world and our lore and our characters. We've got to pay kind of the dues and the respect to that and take that forward. But we're taking advantage of bringing this other world and these other characters and these other iconic things in, and just they exist kind of on a, like, just on a level basis together. They're kind of peers throughout this in terms of how it all works. And so for someone that's new to our game, it's just a great story that you're telling, and you're learning the characters and the world and kind of stuff of Sea of Thieves if you're new to this, right? And you're seeing all of these recognizable characters from Pirates of the Caribbean. Whereas if you're really engaged, some of those moments throughout those tales, like for me, at the end of Tale 3, again, I won't spoil it, but for me, that I watch that every time.
Oh, you
and I get
ruined this for me.
No, but I won't say, but I get so emotional about it because of the writing and the music and everything, and it's just. But it works perfectly from what you know of the characters that are from Pirates of the Caribbean, but it works perfectly as well for the history that we've built up over the last few years. And so it's so beautifully crafted, and I'm allowed to say that because I didn't craft it. So so yeah, but it's like, and I think when we were watching and building and playing that together as devs, like, we were having those emotions, I think, of like, oh wow, we've built this game, we've built this world, we've built these characters, we've come on this journey, and we're seeing kind of that come to fruition with these characters from this other beloved world that we recognize coming in and talking to the characters we've built. But I think for our community, they have the same emotion and same feeling because they've been on that journey too, right? They've seen the game be built, they've seen the world and lore and stories that we've been told. They've come on that journey. They feel as close, if not closer, to those characters and that world than we do. And so it's a special moment for us as developers, but also I think for our community, because we're just basically the same, right? We just happen to be making it, but we still play it, and we love it for the same reasons.
I think that approach of recognizing straight from the start that we needed to be equal creative partners with Disney. We have our world, they have their world, and they need to come together harmoniously, not about one overwriting the other. So that idea that we've always wanted it. For example, we're talking about Tale 2. We always wanted to introduce sirens, perfect for our world. This legend of luring sailors down to the depths, perfect enemy, fantastical creature to put in our world. But like, why do they hate pirates? It's because they used to be human themselves, and now they hate pirates because they long for who they used to be, and that's the sorrow. And then you've got, that's the way Davy Jones feels. That's why they would ally. That's the narrative driver for the story, that he's come to our world and he's allied with the sirens, awoken them, and players discover them. And all these opportunities emerge to thread the elements of the worlds together in a complementary way. And the moment Jack Sparrow, Captain Jack Sparrow the moment Joe's talking about, is that was based on the idea of Jack shouldn't be the pantomime version of Jack. Jack is Jack Sparrow. He should come to our world and go on his own journey. So the idea that there is a pirate world like Sea of Thieves where the pirate life could live forever, Jack would want to be in that world. Like that would be like a legendary pirate world that he would love to find the map to go and find. So the idea that Jack discovers why the Sea of Thieves is special, the midpoint in their story, and then decides he wants to ally up with you to go save the Sea of Thieves together, because you get to appreciate the Sea of Thieves through his eyes and the characters that you meet along the way.
Oh, you guys found a perfect blend of that. I'm doing my best not to spoil it all because I want to gush about all of that, right? And it's just so much fun to see that blend in, to be playing with Miles and his friends, and like to be playing. It's like, oh, you recognize that from the Sea of Thieves lore? Do you recognize this from that tall tale? And look at the blend of now Davy Jones and Captain Jack are all in this, and you can feel that as you progress through. And you guys did such a great job of capturing that moment, and it was a ton of fun. What was it like adding in Jack? You talked about on the Fun Sunday showcase of bringing in the stunt double and hanging out with Captain Jack Sparrow at the office and recreating some of these scenes. What was that like adding Jack and, of course, Davy Jones and everybody else of the cast of characters into the game? And how did you find that magic creating them in your world?
Yeah, that was amazing. That goes back to the having a purpose while we're all living through the pandemic. Those moments with Simon Newton, stunt double on the fourth movie, we kind of found him and reached out to him, and he came to the studio, and a few of us did some socially distanced filming outside to get down the Jack mannerisms. But the first day Simon came to the studio, he arrived early because he wanted to get into the full costume and do the makeup and get the scars in the right place. And his knowledge is, I thought my knowledge was encyclopedic, but everything from the rings being screen perfect, the belt buckles. It's like, well, which belt do you want? Movie 1 belt, movie 2 belt, or movie 3 belt? Which belt do you want? Like that level of a suitcase full of costumes.
I know. What do you want? What do you think? What do you recommend?
The first moment, like walking into this room, and he was sat there with a mirror, and he was getting, oh, that's the scar. So I was like, which are we after the 5th movie? I was like, yes, it's an original story after the 5th movie. So he's getting the scar on that he has in the 5th movie, and he was just about to put on the wig, and he did that on that first day of filming, and it's ever so weird. It sounds so silly, but it was like almost like a starstruck moment of it was so much like Captain Jack, and filming all the animations reference for him. But part of that is, quite cool scenes to film because they're major moments from the tales. But there's also a lot of what a lot of people would consider quite mundane stuff. Like, we just want to capture some animation idols. So you just need to stand there for when you're not doing anything. And in game, you're basically just idling, breathing, looking around, maybe itching your head. And those moments where he's just breathing, you're breathing like Jack Sparrow. The way you move your eyes is like Jack Sparrow. It was just uncanny, and it was those quieter moments. First couple of times we filmed him, I was like, we're doing the right thing here. This is what's going to make it feel authentic. When he's not putting on the show, he's still going to feel like Jack Sparrow, and that's the key. So yeah, it was just trying to bring him to life in the Sea of Thieves world, and it truly feel like that beloved character and not be an imposter. That was the idea.
You guys nailed it. Congratulations.
You really nailed it, and it's a ton of fun. I'm doing my best once again not to spoil anything, but you found such a great blend again of gameplay and then this other feel of like I'm at a show or I'm on this ride and I'm looking all around these different set pieces at Jack and what's happening on the screen and where's the action, where should I be focused on, but also where are the secrets, right? Like I said, I brought up Miles before, and you guys have done such a fun job at not only giving us the fun gameplay and being rewarded for that, but also if you want to dive deeper, you can find all these secrets during the Tall Tales and you can get further rewards for that, right? I thought that was a really cool idea that we talked about last night of, oh, if we 100% this Tall Tale, you get this. If you 100% all 5 Tall Tales, you get this. And it's like, man, now I want to go back and play some more. And I'm so excited that I get to replay with Greg and even more friends. And that was a really cool moment for me, was Tall Tale 3 and 4 of just looking around and seeing the action going on and feeling like, oh, I'm just at a show now is what this feels like, is really, really cool, you guys. I want to bring up 2 final questions because I know we all got to get going here. So I want to bring up the first one that really hit near and dear to my heart after I finished the Tall Tales and how much fun I had. And Greg hit it so well, that whimsical feeling. And on the Sunday showcase, you brought on different members of the team and asked them, what did it feel like to work on this in one word? And the team members brought up incredible, magical, epic, enchanting. But the two words that really stood out to me was proud and rare, right? And it felt so good. It gives me goosebumps just saying that now, of like that proud feeling that you all created this in a world unlike we were ever ready for and accustomed to. And you created something so special with a huge IP and probably a lot of stress and challenge working with Disney and creating something so special for your game. And then that feeling of, this feels like a rare game. This is rare, encapsulated, everything we know of from the studio and the lineage. And you all captured that. What do those two words stand out to you as?
I know Joe said it earlier. The team obviously can't overstate it enough how incredible they've been throughout this process, and even back, in around January 2020, before we entered production, I would always end the pitch, obviously doing the kind of the show around the team and taking it around and trying to get people inspired for what we were going to go do, and I'd always end the pitch with like the wrap up to go, just be proud that we've created a game where something like this is even possible. We haven't even built it yet, but be proud that this had opened up a conversation with a company like Disney that are fans of Sea of Thieves, and they see what's special about it. It's resonated with them, and we've got this incredible opportunity. And in so many ways, the team have seen this as, for many of us, it's the chance of a lifetime. Like, it really is, in terms of the connection that people have for Disney for so many reasons, whether that's, whether they've grown up with it or it's something they've rediscovered in later life, or they've been to the parks. It means so much to so many people. But it's still, Sea of Thieves and the work that the team has done, the spirit of Rare, capturing that whimsical pirate world and trying to create a new gameplay experience. That's what's made all of this possible. So yeah, I hope we never lose sight of that.
Yeah, and it's hard not to get emotional, isn't it? I think around this, but I think the hardest thing actually for this is that because we're still we're still we're living through the pandemic, right? And the most natural thing to celebrate this as a team is for everybody to get together. I don't know if you've seen Rare's kind of campus and studio, but we've got like 100-acre place in the middle of the kind of English countryside, with all of this amazing outdoor space. And so often through the summer we'll have barbecues, or we would have like the summer fete when everybody comes in. We get kind of food trucks and we get kind of animals and stuff in, and like from the local zoo and stuff. It's great, but and we get people in there with their families, and we get to celebrate together. And we do that. We did it at launch. We did there, and it's something that we can't do at the moment. And we've celebrated with all hands calls. We've celebrated with emails, with kind of all the latest kind of sentiment and excitement and things. But we still, it still feels like there's something missing there, that we can't get together as a team and as a studio, right? And of course, we're lucky as anything to be able to have continued to work during the last year in this time, and to be able to work on something like this. But that thing is the thing I'm missing the most. And I think as the UK opens up a bit more, we're looking at when's the first date we can do something like that together, because that buzz and excitement you see of everyone around something like this, right? We just haven't been able to do that with the team, because and they've done an incredible job, and we're so like you say, we're so proud of them, and so proud that this is something that's part of Rare's very long and storied history, right? That this is a big part of it now. But so yeah, so I think, I don't know, I'm just rambling on nonsense now, but
no, you nailed it. That's a
but,
very emotional moment. I understand.
Yeah.
It is, right? And but as we look to the future too, I think, and this is the way that Mike and I are wired now, it's like, okay, cool, what's next? Right? What's the next big amazing thing we're going to go do with this world and with Sea of Thieves, right? And there's so many ideas we have, and it's almost the tyranny of choice. I think is like, there's so many different things we could go do now, and it's like figuring out what's the best thing, what's the thing that's going to blow people away next, and stuff. And so I know what's coming in the next sort of 6 to 9 months. I know we've got that kind of planned out, but then we've got all of these other things we can go do beyond that. And so,
Well, feel free to
it's-
tell us 6 to 9 months what's happening.
So yeah, there's season 4, there's season 5. No,
There you go.
But yeah. So, but yeah, like it's kind of it's a huge moment in the Sea of Thieves journey, but the Sea of Thieves journey is still hopefully right near the start. Right, honestly, like it's like, you know, we're over 3 years in, but we haven't even scratched the surface of where we can take this, I think. So
Exciting.
it's very, very exciting.
That's really
And this-
great, you guys.
Also, there's still nothing like it as well. Obviously, we're going to say that, but in terms of the experiences it can give you, and you know, having it positive received is one thing, but when people reach out to say, you know, I've met a friend through Sea of Thieves, like it's allowed us to connect through the pandemic. You know, we love to just spend time together in this world. They're the player stories that genuinely stick with you in terms of what we're doing. You know, creating a game, it is important, and games can be more than just a game. You know, they can bring people together, and when you hear people talk about Sea of Thieves that way, that is what steels you to this game. This game deserves to live forever. This game deserves to go on, and we want to keep expanding it and giving people new experiences. So that's all part of it, really.
That's awesome, you guys. I was going to ask you what's next, but it looks like you have some fun stuff for us planned for the future. So we might as well set sail to the horizon and look forward to the future with you and the team. So thank you both for joining myself and Greg. And thank you for what you and your team have created and put out to the world. I know I felt it finishing it, and I'm so excited to get back for more with Greg and experience that swag of Sea of Thieves and have that moment together. And so thank you so much for joining us on the Kind of Funny Xcast. Joe and Mike, you two are incredible. This was a ton of fun. Thanks for sharing the stories and the laughter with us. And congratulations to you and your team. We really hope that you enjoy the week, enjoy the moment, and enjoy the future of everything that's to become. Thanks for joining us. And that will wrap up our fun interview with the Sea of Thieves team. We'll see you soon on the Kind of Funny Xcast. All right, guys and gals, welcome back. I hope you enjoyed that Sea of Thieves interview. I know myself and Greg had a ton of fun with Joe and Mike, and I know it was really, really cool to talk about the Pirates Life update. So I hope you check it out this weekend. Gary, let's get the heck out of here. So here's some things that I want all the Xbox gamers to keep a heads up on. Of course, if you thought Xbox Game Pass was done for the month of June after the big update in the beginning of the month, and of course the Xbox and Bethesda Game Showcase, you were wrong, because we got more games coming your way to the Xbox Game Pass service coming soon. Worms Rumble on cloud, console, and PC, available right now. This is actually a really fun entry into the Worms franchise that I really, really love. They added a weird battle royale that you can do solo, duos, or trios, and it's pretty fun to see the Worms really fast-paced, moving all around these different levels that they designed. It's a good time. Check that one out. You have Iron Harvest coming to PC on June 24th. You have Need for Speed Hot Pursuit Remastered, console and PC, thanks to EA Play on June 24th. Gary, that's a game I'd love to get back into because I love those Need for Speed games.
I actually paid cash money for that when it first came out because I didn't want to wait for the Game Pass version. Yeah, it wasn't as good as I wanted it to be, but maybe I should. Again, I've mostly been playing that solo. If you want to jump in when it drops on Game Pass, I will happily fire it back up and play online with you, because again, those are the kind of games that are way, way better when you're playing online with friends.
You got a deal. Well, as of this recording, it is out now because it will be June 26th when this does release. You have Proteos game preview on PC. This is an ID at Xbox game title, released now. After that, you have Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts coming to cloud on July 1st. Bug Fables, The Everlasting Sapling, cloud, console, and PC, ID at Xbox title coming to July 1st. Gang Beasts coming cloud, console, and PC, an ID at Xbox title coming July 1st. Gary, here's one. After our E3 and we saw Party Animals, Gang Beasts coming to the Game Pass on all of the ecosystem. That's something special because I really love Gang Beasts. Was really pumped up about Party Animals. Sad to see it be pushed to 2022, but at least we'll get some Gang Beasts to hold us over. Have you ever played that one?
I haven't played Gang Beasts, but I did play Party Animals recently. My kid's actually really interested in it because, you know, the idea of like Fall Guys with ragdoll physics seems like a lot of fun. I know you've enjoyed playing it. The other one I want to point out to you, it's already available for free. I don't know if it's Game Pass, but it's in like a free alpha phase right now is I think it's called Super Animal Royale or something like that. Have you played it yet?
Gary.
Oh my
I've
god,
played
it's fun.
hours of that.
It's
Countless
so
hours,
fun.
Gary. It is a fun time, and you do not have to be super skilled at that at all to have a good time, because you and your friends can jump in and learn this little top-down twin stick shooter battle royale with super cute animals. That the best part, Gary, I don't know how much you've played, but every single time you play the game, you get animal DNA for different cute animals. So they might be a different breed of an animal or a different
Right.
subsect of that animal. So there's dogs and cats, and each one has different kind of variations you can dress up as. Love that game to death. Highly encourage everybody to check it out.
I think it's a lot of fun, and I understand why it's under a lot of people's radar right now, because it is just you have to kind of dig around the Xbox UI to even find it, and it's in some kind of alpha, beta, whatever. Right now, it's not in full release, but I have a feeling it could be a game that really blows up when it does go into full release. The other one I'm really interested in trying, by the way, just kind of throwing out games that I tried a little bit of this past week on PC. Not sure if it's coming to Xbox, but I imagine it will be. Is Phantom Abyss. I don't know if you tried that out, but that's also a lot of fun.
Gary, I
it's
played
kind of
that
like
on
a
Thursday.
Legends of the Hidden Temple kind of vibe, but really, really fun. There's so many games coming out. Like, there's not enough hours in the day. That's the problem.
There never is, Gary. And yeah, Phantom Abyss is a must check out. Indiana Jones meets Fall Guys meets Ultimate Obstacle Course fun. I love it, Gary. And our final Game Pass edition is Limbo. Cloud console and PC
so good.
coming July 1st. Now, Gary, I never played Limbo. I played Inside. Should I check out Limbo?
Inside's one of my favorite games of the past 10 years. I absolutely loved it. I think it's a masterpiece, and it's one of the reasons why I am so interested in. I think is it called Somerville? Is the new one that they just showed during E3, where it's some of the devs from that team are working on it. It has a very similar vibe to it. No, if you liked it, I think it's fair to say if you liked Inside, you'll like Limbo. Not exactly the same, but very similar vibe, very similar aesthetic. It's got that kind of monochromatic look. It's very, kind of scary and gory, and has that kind of eldritch kind of vibe to it. I think you would enjoy it. And again, Game Pass, right? What do you got to lose?
What do you got to lose? Gary Whitta, we got more cloud-enabled games with Xbox Touch controls coming your way. Starting right now, you have 8 new titles being updated with touch controls. Dirt 5, Double Kick Heroes, East Shade, Empire of Sin, Haven, Octopath Traveler, Torchlight 3, and your favorite, Gary, Yakuza Like a Dragon.
Oh, yeah.
Now, Gary, I'm going to tell you, I really loved Yakuza, and I found that I wasn't streaming it that much, where I'm mainly playing my games, because I was looking for that multiplayer game. And so when I would go to bed, I would play it over in the bedroom on the Series S. The issue is my eyesight is really bad, so I can't actually read any of the text from the bed to the TV across the room. And so I think this makes the perfect situation for me to continue Yakuza Like a Dragon, where I'm going to play SportsCenter on the TV, but then on my phone in bed, I'm going to play the rest of the way through that story, which I'm really excited about.
Yeah, and the touch controls thing is interesting. To be quite honest with you, I'm a little bit skeptical about touch controls. I don't
really.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of them. I don't think they can replace good old fashioned tactile clicky buttons. I was going to say to you, if you want to play Yakuza, bust out your Razer Kishi or whatever, and play it. By all means, play it in bed, but play it with real buttons. But the nice thing about Yakuza, unlike all the previous Yakuza games before it, it's not a Twitch game. It's not a brawler, right? It's a turn-based, JRPG. So any kind of fiddliness that you might otherwise experience in terms of this isn't as responsive as playing with, tactile controls. In a JRPG or a game like that, where it doesn't really matter what your Twitch speed is or how responsive the controls are, I feel like a game like that would probably map to touch controls much better. So yeah, put it on your iPad or something, or put it on your whatever mobile device you've got available, and give it a try. I usually would be like, touch controls, I'm not interested, but I feel like a game like that, a little bit more mappable without the frustration I usually associate with missing the physical buttons.
Now, leaving the service on June 30th, that's the end of the month. Remember, these titles will be leaving, but you as an Xbox Game Pass member will get a 20% discount if you would like to buy it and add it to your library. Battle Chasers, Night War, Marvel's vs. Capcom Infinite, Mistover, Monster Hunter World, that's a big one there. Don't miss out on playing that game. Out of the Park Baseball 21, Outer Wilds, another great game. Soul Calibur 6, and The Messenger are all leaving the service on June 30th. So make sure to take advantage of that. Your Xbox free-to-play days. Play like a boss as an extraordinary heroes or as a fellow rat smasher. Saints Row 4 re-elected, Overwatch Origins Edition, and Warhammer Vermintide 2 are all available to play throughout the weekend. And hey, Halo fans like me, you got a brand new big-time blog post with the Inside Infinite team over on the Halo Waypoint right now for the month of June. They're talking with the live service team and they're talking with the Waypoint team all about that live service from day one and onward and how they're going to keep you engaged and drive the best value for you, the players. And they're going to talk about that Waypoint app/website and how they're elevating that for the next generation of play. And with all of that, Gary, that was one rocking episode. It was nice to sit down with you one-on-one. Our good friend Paris Lilly out on vacation this week. We had a great interview with the Sea of Thieves team. But Gary, where can everybody find you? What are you going to be playing? What are you going to be doing this week?
Well, I was going to say it was really, really fun to get back into the groove of playing video games we did this past week with the squad stream on our Twitch channels. I think we're going to keep the energy going. Look out for me on Twitch and also on Twitter and YouTube. The name is the same across all three. It's just Gary Whitta, GaryWhitta. But yeah, come check me out on Twitch. I think there's going to be some Mario Golf happening. I think we're talking about Sea of Thieves. Let's keep the momentum going for sure.
Keep the gaming with friends going on. On behalf of myself, Gary Whitta, and our good friend Roger running the ones and twos and producing the show today. Thank you all so much for tuning in for another episode of the Kind of Funny Xcast. We'll see you next week and have fun out there, gamers. Peace. Let's talk to the chat right now. Gary Whitta, we got 10 minutes on the clock or so. Let's hang out. Let's chat it up. Of course, the biggest news of the week, Gary Whitta, Fast and the Furious 9 in the Kind of Funny world. Are you into this or are you not into it?
I've not seen all of the Fast and the Furious movies. I've seen most of them. I think the last 2 or 3 I still need to catch up on, but I enjoy them. For me, they are kind of like, the new Bond movie. Like the Bond is still a thing, right? But Bond has become a bit more serious and gritty in the Daniel Craig era. But like for me, the Fast and Furious movies are almost movies that I grew up on, where it's just like, beautiful locations, beautiful people, incredible cars and gadgets, ridiculous stunts, over-the-top storylines. That I feel like the Fast and the Furious movies have become kind of the modern-day inheritor to the kind of the James Bond mantle when you're looking for that kind of over-the-top entertainment. So I don't know how much further they can keep pushing it, right? Because I don't know what they're doing with Fast 9. I heard they go into outer space, maybe. There's rumors of a Jurassic Park crossover down the road.
Oh, that'd be so cool.
Because, I think this is kind of the fun of it, right? They make so much money with these movies that they have a license to kind of do whatever they want. And the Fast and the Furious brand has kind of become like, how much more can we keep up in the ante, time after time after time? And they somehow keep finding ways to do it. And I do think they are going to go into increasingly outlandish territory, whether it's dinosaurs, whether it's space aliens, whether it's time travel, who the fuck knows? The point is, I think that we're getting to a point now where the Fast and the Furious movies are moving into the era of the truly ridiculous, and that I'm down for that. I want to see how silly these movies can really become.
I'm down for that, Gary. I love when they get all crazy and wild, and I love seeing that cast. It's pretty wild to think, man, Roger, you can correct me, I'm sure, since you probably know because you're hip with it. You're a young kid. These movies got to be over a decade plus, right? I was probably a young teen when the first one came out, I feel like, and it's just wild to see this cast grow up.
The
and
first
add
one
new
came out
people
in
that I love.
2001.
2001, so
20
20
years
years
old.
old.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah, Fast and the Furious is as old as Halo, Mike.
Oh my god! Oh my god, Gary, get out of here, Gary. Now that's a good tweet you should put out there for people. I might steal that tweet from you. I love it. Wow, 20 years, Gary. That's unbelievable to think of. Can you tell me another franchise like that of recent, not like the James Bonds or anything that has gone on for that long, like Fast and the Furious? Is there anything like of recent times like that?
I mean, on a lower level, you think of like Halloween and kind of horror movies like Freddy and Jason and those kind of movies that just keep they just keep rolling them out. What are they up to? Like 6 or 7 Purge movies now. Like they do, they're up, but like at the highest level. I mean, if you think about it, in terms of like the saga films, they ended up with 9 Star Wars saga films, but that took them more than 40 years to make that many movies, you know, because there were so many breaks in between. Fast and Furious got to 9 movies in half that time.
Yeah.
And there's no sign of it stopping. I think there's something like 20 something Bond movies, but again, they've been around since the 1960s. So in terms of a franchise that has remained at the top of the box office, the only other thing I can think of is the MCU, where they actually made like 20 movies in even less time. Yeah, and you know, so the MCU is the only kind of modern equivalent I can think of.
Dave Goldstein in the chat says Mission Impossible, which is true.
Dave,
Mission Impossible. What? Because they don't number them. What are they up to there? Like 8 on those now?
Yeah, I think the next one's gonna be 8 if I'm not mistaken.
Really? Okay, so they're crushing that. But that was early 90s, right? Is when they came out with the first one.
I believe
the first one was the 90s, and they went through a whole, and there was some breaks in between. But now they're actually making them on a pretty, because they've settled into like one writer director who basically does them all, and they're bashing them out on a pretty regular basis, I think.
Those are fun, you know. And then Kyle, I also want to shout out to my guy Kyle. He put Harry Potter's in there, which is a good call. But when we think of IO Interactive making the James Bond games, Gary, do you think that Mission Impossible would hold the same weight as James Bond, the name? Like, would we have gotten as hype if they were like, we're going to make a Mission Impossible game? Or do you think that James Bond is the kind of apex of all of that?
For me, Bond is more meaningful, but I'm 48 years old, right? So I grew up with the James Bond movies. I think if you ask someone half my age, you might get a very different answer.
No, I disagree. No, for me, like I'm pretty young, but I never really. Bond is still the one. I've never seen a Bond movie. Never seen them, but I
oh,
still
you gotta watch.
Wait! You've never seen a Bond movie?
No, not full way through. I've seen like maybe like a few minutes of them. Yeah.
But are you saying that you feel like the Bond name is still meaningful to you?
Yeah, for sure. Because if you said Mission Impossible, I don't think I would be as excited. I'm very excited for an IO Interactive James Bond game. For sure.
So given that you've known, it is really genuinely interesting to me. So you're a younger person, you didn't grow up with the Bond movies, never actually seen one, but it's permeated the pop culture consciousness to such a degree that you understand, it still feels meaningful to you, even though you've never had any real direct engagement with those movies. I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, I think it's just like, it's so like effervescent, like the idea like Q and like all the gadgets and everything, like it's such a blank slate, I feel like, for IO Interactive to go into, and I just don't feel like you have that with Mission Impossible. I mean, you have like the masks and everything like that, but this is just so iconic that
it's interesting. It's very, very hard to create something that can really, really stand the test of time. Mike, you and I in Paris have talked on the show before about even like Halo now for young kids coming up kind of feels like you know, the game that your dad played. You know, I actually asked someone about this the other day. I was talking to a friend. He brought his teenage kid over, you know, for coffee, and I was like, and he plays video games. So I was like, okay, I want to ask you about this because I was talking about this on my podcast with my friends. Halo, is that cool, or is that like shit that like old people play? And he goes, it's shit that old people play. I'm like, wow. It's like, man. So I actually think Xbox might actually have a little bit of a mountain to climb in terms of convincing the next generation of, you know, millennial and Gen Z gamers that Halo is still, you know, relevant and cool. But that's the interesting difference with something like Bond, which is way, way older than Halo, and which you could argue, again, I guess I was wrong based on what Roger said, but I instantly thought like most young people would think that Bond is like some old-fashioned shit, but maybe Bond has transcended where it's just like timelessly cool. Like that's the most valuable commodity that you can have, is that if you create something that is just like forever cool, like Bond will never not be cool. Again, I personally think that like Bond will always be cool. But again, I recognize that I'm older. To hear someone like Roger, who is quite a bit younger, and again, he's never even seen a movie, but understands the coolness of Bond, that's really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that one-liner is iconic, right? James Bond or whatever. Bond, James Bond.
Yep.
Just so iconic. And yeah, I mean, I'm surprised that Roger hasn't seen one, but I think he is forever cool, and he will always be a staple in pop culture no matter what. So
I thought you were talking about me.
That's really cool. Yeah, I'm talking about you as well.
I was like, oh wow.
Want to give some big love to all of our Patreon subscribers out there and supporters that have joined us for another week of the Kind of Funny Xcast. I see you each and every week. I always have the chat up. Shout out to Kitty Hawk, Kyle, P.S. John B is in the chat, Xbox guy, Kohanda Fukanda. Thank you so much for all of the love. Yosemite Blam, David, thank you guys for tuning in and hanging out. Truly and honestly, it is really, really cool to have you guys watching the show live engaging with us. And I do want to say, yes, we have recorded the interview with the Rare devs. Of course, they are out in the UK, so we had to wake up mega early to go chat with them. We didn't want to keep them up until midnight plus their time to do this right here. But me and Greg had a really good conversation. I want you to go check that out. It was 50 minutes of fun, great stories, and really, really cool stuff. So go check that out. Make sure you catch that because you'll love that. And man, keep an eye out. Me, Gary, and Greg will definitely play some Sea of Thieves. Maybe even Kevin will join us. Who knows? Roger's
I want
pumped
to
up
play
after the
Mario
interview.
Golf and I want to play Sea of Thieves. Let's make them both happen.
Mario Golf. We're going to make that happen. So keep an eye on our Twitch channels. Continue to engage with us on social media. Let us know how your weekend was. Stop by the Twitch channel and hang out. But thank you to Hello Daydream. Thank you to everyone for tuning in. And let's go head off into the weekend. It's been a long week, and I got to go look at a Fast 9 movie time because I think I'm going to go see it right away. I'll catch y'all next week. Thanks for hanging out with us.